The story begins with an abandoned bungalow where a boy, probably an archmage, stands in front of a growling monster. As he sees it, he forms a magic circle and wonders if the ice could freeze the earth, embracing it and putting it to rest. With that thought, the surroundings begin to freeze. The monster is astonished as the ice completely surrounds it. Korea's top magic family is the Shin family. Even among the many geniuses in this family, the boy Hale is known as an exceptional talent until that incident. Count Shin asks Hale Shin, the third son of the prestigious Shin family, if he understands. Hale replies that he will deliver results worthy of the Shin family name, graduate at the top of Obelisk Academy, become the world's greatest mage, and lead the Shin family. Count Shin tells him he has a talent that surpasses his brothers, a talent that no one else can rival. He says he looks forward to it and expects Hale to reach the pinnacle of AI magic, stand at the peak of the magical arts, and prove himself. Hale responds that he will prove it without fail. To become the world's greatest mage, he vows to surpass not only his brothers, but also his father, the nation's top mage. 2 years pass. At the prestigious Obelisk Academy of Magic, a teacher tells the sophomores to gather for the practical exam. The first student called is Baek Sahyuk, and the teacher encourages him to stay calm and perform as usual. Sahyuk casually replies that there's no reason to be nervous. He mocks Hale, saying the bottom rank is already decided Shin Hale, a loser who can't even use basic magic. He questions how Hale even made it to the second year and insults him as a worthless piece of trash who can't use AI magic. Hale quietly remarks that, in today's world, mages are still rare and valuable. The teacher then tells Sahyuk to begin the practical. Baek Sahyuk forms a fireball and easily clears the monster suppression test within the time limit, passing the exam. Modern magic has drastically evolved with the introduction of AI. All modern age mages have implanted AI chips in their bodies, allowing them to cast spells effortlessly without complex incantations. But Hale is unfit for this system. When his turn comes, he begins to gather magic, first collecting mana, the source of magic, into the heart, then attempting the 8 steps to form the magic formula. However, he fails, and monsters attack him. Sahyuk laughs at him, mocking him for attempting magic. He calls Hale an outdated mage who can't use AI in the modern age and tells him to know his place. With that, the monster suppression test time is exceeded, and Hale fails. Everyone laughs at him. Hale reflects that he has failed, but at least his incantation speed has improved from before. He remembers that the moment he was deemed unfit for AI, his father gave up on him, even sending medicine to destroy the mana circle in his heart. However, Hale has no intention of giving up on his dreams. The path he chooses is traditional magic, which is now considered obsolete. The downside is that he can only learn old magic through books. In his room, Hale notices the mess of books and comments that it would be great if these old magic textbooks were in e-book format, as he is running out of space for them. Then, spotting a book, he wonders if he ever bought one like it. As he opens it and starts reading, he realizes that it's quite old, though it looks fancy and expensive. Unable to read the writing, he questions what it says, finding the handwriting too poor to decipher. He then realizes it is a book by Ray Bel Betaneo and remarks that it has been a while. Ray Bel Betaneo, known as the first Grand Mage of humanity, the first emperor of the Magus Empire of Betaneo, and the creator of all magic, was someone he used to read about often in biographies during his childhood. Suddenly, a strange surge of energy begins to emerge from the book. Hale fails to hold onto it, throws the book, and wonders about the bright light that begins to appear. A voice from the book says that to the one who shares his constitution and can hear his voice, he, Ray Bel Betaneo, leaves this book. Hale wonders about the voice coming from the book. At that time, he does not know that being unsuitable is, in fact, a stroke of luck for him. The students who fail the practical exam today are required to attend remedial classes. He, who can only endure powerlessly, has no idea that he will be revived. The next day, Hale sits alone in the school cafeteria. A guy approaches him, asks if he's eating alone again today, and sits with him. This guy is Jai Sunshin. Even though he looks a bit dumb, he ranks in the top 10 at the academy and became a third circle magician at 18. He's actually quite skilled. He is also the only person Hale can really call a friend in his difficult school life. Sunshin tells Hale that if anyone is bullying him, he should let him know, and he will take care of it. Hale replies that he's fine and mentions that he found a strange book yesterday. It's a weird book where everything after page 3 is blank. It's about Ray Bel Betaneo, and he thinks that the other kids must have messed with it, as it even shone and spoke when he opened it. Sunshin asks if it actually used magic, surprised by the effort, and wants to know what it's about. Hale explains that it talks about Bataneo leaving his magic to his successor or something like that. Apparently, if someone doesn't have the same constitution as him, they can't even open the book. And the last page says that the person needs to die first, not the heart, but by creating a mana circle in the brain. Sunshin reacts seriously, saying a mana circle in the brain is no joke, and suggests they check the book first. At night, in the Obelisk Academy student dormitory, Hale shows the book to Sunshin and says that it claims only someone with the same constitution as Ray Bell can open it. Sunshin grabs the book and tries to open it, but despite his effort, he fails. He hands it back to Hale, saying it won't open and isn't budging, wondering if it might be a locking spell. Then he says he doesn't know, tells Hale to forget it, and says he's done with it. With that, he leaves. Hale then opens the book with ease and wonders about the page that was previously blank. A voice from the book speaks, addressing his successor, and says that if the guess is correct, he is probably using a mana circle in his heart to cast magic. For ordinary people, that is considered normal. Hale responds that for him, and for the speaker, it is not the right way. He throws the book aside, but the voice continues, stating that if he accepts the will and is prepared to become the disciple, he must destroy the mana circle in his heart and create one in his brain. After that, he should open the book again. Hale comments on what a bad joke it is, noting that it's still insisting on creating a mana circle in the brain. Mana, the source of magic, is toxic to the brain. If mana enters the brain, the mind collapses, and in the worst case, it can lead to brain death. He concludes that the message is clearly telling him to die quickly. Dismissing it, he lies down to sleep, wondering who would ever do something like that. The next morning at school, the instructor asks Hale what's going on. Hale approaches him and asks if he can check a book just once. The instructor notices the book and comments that it's written in ancient script and does seem quite old. He then asks Hale what exactly he wants checked about the book. Hale requests him to open it and see if it's sealed by magic, mentioning that there's a strange rumor going around among the students lately. The instructor advises Hale that focusing on rumors isn't good for his studies, but agrees to check it. He says he will need to concentrate for a moment. After examining it, he returns the book to Hale and informs him that there is no trace of magic in the book, telling him to forget the rumors and focus on his academics. Afterward, Hale thinks that he was hoping for even the slightest possibility, since even Sunshin, who has high magical power, and the instructor couldn't open the book, there is a chance that it might actually be real. That night, sitting in his room, Hale holds the packets of medicine sent by his father. He wonders if taking them will destroy the mana circle in his heart. He affirms to himself that he's not giving up on magic. Holding the tablets in his hand, he thinks that his life has already been on the edge anyway. He then swallows the tablets and says that he's going to die today. His body starts reacting. He wonders if the pain is from the mana circle linked to his heart breaking apart. It hurts. This is the death of a magician. From this point forward, he takes on a forbidden challenge. He begins to circulate mana through his brain. A voice speaks, saying that from now on, he is living again as a magician. Hale remarks that as soon as he circulates mana through his brain, the pain fades away. It had been a pain that felt like it could kill him. He questions if this is what death feels like. At that moment, someone whispers, asking if he can hear them, calling out to future generations. Hale wonders if it is the voice of mana. The voice continues, speaking of light and darkness, sky and earth, and how the spirit of mana dances and whispers, coexisting with mana. He hears the voice. It is laughing, singing, as if offering a blessing. In the morning, he finds himself on the floor. He gets up and wonders if he is still alive. He sees the book beside him, grabs it, and notices that letters have appeared on the previously blank page. The voice becomes clearer and says congratulations, stating that he has taken the first step. The book reveals its name, Idrid. From that moment on, the voice declares that his legend begins. Through the book of Idrid, all the speaker's magic is left to him. The voice then asks if it can now call him by a new name, his disciple. A few days later, sitting in the classroom, Hale reads Idrid and mutters that another new entry has been added. He reflects on how surprising it is that learning magic could be this enjoyable. Idrid contains a vast amount of knowledge. To begin with, it explains that mana has a will of its own. For most people, when mana enters the brain, the two wills clash, resulting in the brain's destruction. This is why mana acts as a toxin in the brain. But he notes that he is different. The will of his brain blocks the will of mana, which means it doesn't get destroyed. Hale mutters that the brain doesn't accept the will of mana. That explains why he had a natural resistance to AI chips, which interfere with brain function. Then, the professor draws everyone's attention and announces that the second-year midterm evaluation is coming up. He adds that this year, a new rule will be introduced: students who do not meet the standard will be expelled. This rule was personally proposed by the head of the Shin family. Sahyuk comments that it's time to get rid of the defective ones. The professor laughs and says it seems there is a borderline student in his class. Meanwhile, Hale begins to wonder about his father. Standing outside the rental simulation training center in the city, Hale remarks that it is way too expensive. He checks the hourly cost on his phone. Entering the center, the man at the counter welcomes him. Hale requests 1 hour, and the man asks if he is going alone. Hale confirms, and the man gives him a card, instructing him to use room 14. As the man begins to explain the hologram device, Hale moves away, saying he already knows how to use it. The man, watching him leave, mutters that it is Shin Hale from the Shin family, a noble's son labeled as unfit for AI. How unlucky. Meanwhile, in room 14, Hale initiates the training simulation, the Wolf Challenge quest. As wolves surround him, Hale, standing between them, notes that although they are low-ranked monsters, taking on a tenth of them at once is not easy. The average time to clear the Wolf Challenge is 12 minutes and 33 seconds. Now, he practices what is written in the Idrid book every day, and there is no better way to test his progress. He uses his new Infinity Mana Circle, throws water magic at the wolves, and destroys them. He wonders at his incredible power. While other mages circulate mana only through their hearts to use AI magic, he can circulate his through his whole body using his brain. Thanks to the Infinity Circle, his previously suppressed magical power is now unleashed. The voice says that disciples should not be surprised by something of this level. There is still a long way to go. The Infinity Circle is merely the foundation of Bateneo-style magic. It is about controlling magic with images formed in the mind. This is the first book of Bateneo-style magic, the Heart's Intent. Afterward, Hale leaves the training center. The man at the counter thanks him and then enters room 14, wondering how the fallen genius used to train. He is shocked to see that Shin Hale completed the Wolf Challenge in just 6 minutes, an international competition level record. Kicking the machine, he shouts, asking how it is possible for someone unfit to set a record like this, insisting it must be broken again. Meanwhile, this marks the beginning of a legend. Sitting in the empty class, Hale wonders why forming the first circle had been a real struggle. The records in Idrid's book are entirely different from the magic he has learned until now. The voice from Idrid says that mana is in his arms and legs, his heart and mind move as he wishes. He wonders what that even means. To find alignment with such broad words feels like a sort of truth is hidden behind a transparent curtain, as if he could grasp it, but cannot. In magic studies, this is called the wall of alignment. When magicians confront the limits of their magic, they reach this wall. This has held true in every era. For now, he decides to focus on circulating mana through his entire body, as written in Idrid's book. As he begins practicing, he wonders if this is really enough. By the time he regains focus, he has been circulating mana for 10 hours. Normally, this would be exhausting enough to make him lose consciousness, but strangely, it does not feel that way. The next morning, as he is on his way to school, Sunshine greets him and asks why he looks so drained again, and if he is okay. Hale mutters that being constantly aware of mana circulation is not easy. He wants to get used to this new mana circle quickly, skillfully, and without delay. When he achieved the second circle at 12 years old, people called him a prodigy, and his father had high hopes for him. Now, he can only manage to form a first circle in his brain's mana circle. He wonders what the best way forward is. Breaking the wall of enlightenment is essential to advancing in magic. This was what his father once told him, back when he still had expectations for him as a child. Perfection, he said, is just a chain. Perfection is a lie born from human arrogance. Sitting on his bed and practicing, Hale begins to feel it. Mana is in his arms and legs, and his heart and mind move as he wishes. Imperfect, free imagination that is what instant spellcasting is, the kind that does not even need an incantation. AI magic uses shortened incantations to activate spells. That method of casting has consistency. But the approach recorded by Bateneo is about freeing one's thoughts, a spell that can even change its shape freely. A spell that ignores the algorithmic structure of magic formulas. He then successfully uses the magic and wonders, though he is still only at the first circle, and it is physically exhausting. He happily exclaims that he can't believe he is able to use such impossible magic. He feels he is breaking past the wall of enlightenment, reaching toward greater heights. Meanwhile, the next day in the classroom, Hale is sitting when an instructor informs him that he has a visitor and asks him to follow. As he starts following the instructor, He is told that his father is here to see him. In the drawing room, Count Shin says to come in. The instructor says he has brought Hale. Hale greets his father, saying it's been a while. The instructor then takes his leave. Sitting on the couch, Count Shin says that seeing him attending school must mean he has not taken the medicine that was sent. Hale replies yes, but recently, he has made progress in his magic. Count Shin responds if he is chasing a hopeless dream. Hale says he is determined to become a grand magician who leads the era. His father, looking at him angrily, says he has already wasted a year. It is time to face reality. No matter how hard he works now or what he accomplishes in the future, as long as he rejects AI magic, he will never become a proper magician. Still, he has a unique talent. If he gives up on pointless ideals and studies magic theory properly, even as a misfit, he can make use of that talent. Hale repeats that he won't give up on magic. He doesn't want to live an ordinary life. He stands and says he won't rely on his father's family name. What he wants is to become the next head of the Shin family. Count Shin replies that becoming a grand magician or the head of the Shin family is not something one achieves with ambition alone. Hale says he will prove it. His father asks if he is not talking about barely meeting the Academy's verification standards and avoiding expulsion. Hale says that in this verification test, he will place within the top 10. And if he fails, he will leave the Academy and devote himself to studying magic theory, just as his father says. But if he succeeds, he wants his father to acknowledge his talent as a magician and promise full support. His father says that recent achievement is the source of his unwarranted confidence. As he begins to leave, he says, "May it not be a meaningless accomplishment." A few days later, in the classroom, the instructor announces that they are revealing the test method for the evaluation. He explains that the test method this time is a single elimination tournament, in other words, a duel. The test will take place over 3 days. Starting from the round of 16, external businesses and members of the Magic Tower will be able to attend as spectators. The instructor encourages everyone to do their best to succeed. Hale, determined, remarks that now it is time to show what he is capable of. After the instructor's announcement, everyone excitedly discussed that even the Magic Tower would be attending, calling it amazing. Hale, overhearing the gossip, mutters that the whole school is buzzing with excitement about the midterm verification presentation. If the Magic Tower is coming, it will even attract media attention. The Magic Tower is an organization of 12 high-class magicians from around the world, holding power equivalent to a nation. Every Academy student dreams of joining it. Then Beek Sahyuk approaches Hale and asks how his condition is. Sahyuk, an upper-class student in his second year, is known for being insufferable. He tells Hale that he is his opponent in the first match of the midterm evaluation. Coming closer, he adds that Hale is screwed and says he will get proper revenge for what happened 5 years ago. 5 years ago, during the Junior Magic Tournament Finals, Hale defeated Sahyuk miserably. Since then, the world has begun calling Hale the Loner Wizard. When Sahyuk finds out that Hale is an AI misfit, he starts harassing him relentlessly. Sahyuk then mocks Hale, pointing out that anyone who fails the midterm evaluation will be expelled, and suggests that he should beat Hale until he's forced out. He asks if Hale will cry all the way home. Hale notes that Sahyuk is his first match opponent and considers it a perfect chance to showcase his skills during the midterm. He responds by saying that it is exactly what is going to happen to Sahyuk, and that he intends to make the most of this opportunity. Sahyuk laughs and shouts, asking if Hale is crazy and if he still doesn't understand the situation. Hale reminds him that he was just as loud 5 years ago and still lost miserably, wondering if Sahyuk has improved at all. This frustrates Sahyuk. Hale then taunts him further, asking if he has been that upset about losing to him, calling him Wimp Wizard. In frustration, Sahyuk grabs Hale by the collar and insults him. Hale pushes his hand away, saying that someone who has lived down in the dirt probably wouldn't understand, but even a fall can only happen to someone who was once on top. Fixing his tie, he states that once a genius, always a genius, and that he will make sure Sahyuk remembers that. With those words, Hale leaves. Sahyuk grits his teeth and says he will grind Hale down and burn him to ashes. The next morning, Hale sees an article about him that claims the magnificent son of a genius, the fallen prodigy of the Shin family, Shin Hale, might be rising again against the odds. He mutters that it's on the front page of internet news and notes that the Beek Sahyuk family has no shortage of influence either. He thinks it must have been easy for Sahyuk to find a journalist willing to write such articles and knows that, given Sahyuk's personality, he would do something like this. He says that in this midterm evaluation, people are expecting the prodigy to return, and the more public attention he receives, the better it is for him. Then, his father calls. Hale picks up the call and says he has seen the article, and there's no need to worry about it. His father asks if Hale arranged it. Hale replies that he provoked Sahyuk to draw public attention. His father says that when he accepted Hale's proposal earlier, it wasn't because he trusted him, it was because there was no loss to the Shin family. He still doesn't expect Hale to win. That article, he says, could bring shame to the family, so he asks why Hale wants him to leave it alone. Hale responds that the public already believes he has been expelled from the Shin family, so even if he brings disgrace, the impact on the family would be minor. His father tells him the impact may be small but not non-existent, and reminds him that wherever he goes, the Shin family's name follows. Hale replies that he is aware of that, but believes the potential gain is worth it. Count Shin asks what gains he refers to and what benefits the family would receive if he wins. Hale answers that it would be him, the world's greatest magician, produced by the Shin family, and the strongest head in the family's history. His father says that Hale already seems to have surpassed the Tower Master for such ambition. He agrees to leave it alone for now, and Hale thanks him. His father warns him that if he brings disgrace even after all this talk, he should be prepared for the consequences. After hanging up the call, Hale appears confident and says the stage is now set. On the day of the midterm evaluation, as they stand facing each other, Sahyuk asks Hale if he liked the article he wrote. He says that, being a so-called prodigy, Hale has been incredibly popular from the first day. Sahyuk adds that he can't stop laughing just thinking about how ridiculous it will look when Hale loses without casting a single spell. Hale responds that the one losing might actually be Sahyuk and thanks him for playing into his hands. He says that if Sahyuk doesn't like him, it doesn't matter, because he doesn't care at all about a nobody like him, and promises to make it quick, telling him not to hold it against him. Sahyuk laughs and says Hale is really insane. Hale then points at him with a finger and declares that he will beat him with just a single one-circle spell. Sahyuk, frustrated, says how dare a lowlife like Hale mock him, calling him a piece of trash. Then the referee blows the whistle and announces that the first match of the Obelisk Academy's second-year midterm exam begins. Sahyuk immediately throws a fire magic ball at Hale, shouting for him to die. Hale dodges the fireball, muttering that it's Sahyuk's specialty magic explosion. Sahyuk then casts a third circle spell, causing a fire explosion as he hurls it at Hale. He laughs and says that's what Hale gets for acting cocky. But his laughter stops as he sees Hale emerging from the smoke without a single scratch. Stunned, Sahyuk casts another spell and hurls it at him, but Hale blocks his fire attacks using water magic. Sahyuk begins to wonder how his specialty spell is being blocked so easily. Meanwhile, Kim Kangin, master of the Blue Tower and an 8th circle mage, watches the match with interest from a window. He comments that it is strange to cast a first circle spell instantly. His secretary, Jiang Sua, asks why he would reschedule everything at the Blue Tower just to watch a student's match and whether he knows anything about Hale's magic. Kangin says he doesn't, and that he only read an article about a prodigy making a comeback he came out of curiosity. Jiang Sua notes that even so, if it becomes known that the Blue Tower's leader and circle mage came to watch a student's match, there will be a huge uproar. Kangin laughs and says he knows that too well, which is why he is using the VIP room. Then someone appears behind them, and Kangin notices him, exclaiming in surprise that he is here too. Meanwhile, on the battlefield, Sahyuk appears worried and wonders what is going on, how Hale is able to block his third circle explosion with just a first circle water spell, and why his casting speed is so abnormally fast. Hale notices Sahyuk's expression and asks if he is curious about his casting speed. Sahyuk, shouting, tells him to shut up and die already, then casts his triple fire magic circle again, causing a huge fire explosion. Mocking him, Sahyuk says he could tell from the moment Hale started showing off with just a first circle spell how pathetic he is. But Hale, unharmed once more, appears from the explosion and casts a wind spear spell at him. Sahyuk barely dodges the attack and wonders when Hale even cast it. He questions why his own attacks aren't leaving a single scratch and why Hale seems unaffected at all. Sahyuk then asks if Hale really thinks he can beat him with just a first circle spell. Hale casts another spell and replies confidently that, yes, obviously he can, then hurls another attack at him. Sahyuk blocks it and retorts, asking what the hell he thinks he's doing, and telling him not to get cocky just because his casting speed has improved a little. Hale then surrounds him with wind spear magic, causing Sahyuk to grow troubled. He wonders when Hale cast the wind spear behind him and, alarmed, asks what the hell he did. Hale laughs and asks if he still doesn't get it, then offers to show him again. Hale then hurls 3 wind spears at Sahyuk. Sahyuk quickly forms a magic circle around himself and wonders if what he's seeing is truly a wind spear, because a wind spear shouldn't have a double shot property. Hale acknowledges that he's right, that it shouldn't, but he can make it happen. Hale hurls more spears and challenges him to try blocking for this time. Sahyuk forms a barrier with his magic and struggles to maintain it. He thinks that even if it's just a one-circle spell, he should be able to manage as long as he blocks properly, but then notices one of the wind spears curving toward him from a bent trajectory. Hale remarks that thinking is fine, but questions whether Sahyuk really wants to keep standing there looking dazed. He then hurls even more wind spears and states that the match has only just begun. Noticing the incoming attacks, Sahyuk thinks he just needs to move out of the wind spear's range and create some distance. Since the spell's range is somewhat limited, he reasons that if he puts enough space between them, Hale's unpredictable attack won't reach him. Hale acknowledges that it's a good decision, and then hurls another powerful attack that shatters Sahyuk's barrier. Watching from the VIP room, Kangen observes that not only does Hale cast spells instantly, but their trajectories also change and merge in mid-air. He turns to Count Shin and Inhyak and asks what kind of magic it is. Jeong Sua agrees, noting that Hale's magic clearly disregards the rules of open source magic. She explains that open source magic is a reverse cutter technique. If the target is beyond 38 meters, the spell can't reach them, and if a trajectory is altered once, it can't be changed again. In other words, open source magic only functions according to its defined effects. That's why modern mage duels resemble mental battles. Each participant tries to predict their opponent's moves with known spells, and reacting flexibly is the key to winning, much like a game skill. But she concludes that Betaneo-style magic, the type Hale is using, completely ignores the limitations of open-source modern magic. Sahyuk falls to the ground as Hale's magic cracks the earth beneath him. He wonders if he's really struggling against just a one-circle spell. Hale tells him he's underestimating one-circle spells too much. Sitting close to Sahyuk, he gathers magic in his hand and explains that even if someone exhausts themselves using 3-circle spells, all it takes to kill someone is a single pen. When Sahyuk asks what he means, Hale casts a 1-circle water spell and says the same logic applies to magic. There's no need for a grand spell to end a life. He binds Sahyuk's face with the water magic. Hale stands up and notes that the Academy's battle uniforms are protected by the safety barrier spell, Safety Zone, but right now, it doesn't seem to be helping Sahyuk, just like Sahyuk himself. Hale then calls out to the instructor, saying the result seems clear, and asks if they should continue. The referee blows the whistle and declares the match over. The winner is Shin Hale. Meanwhile, Hale feels a familiar sensation. It's been a while since he's felt this, the feeling of returning as a mage once again. Watching from above, Kangen remarks that the prodigy's return is interesting, and that he wants to know more about him. Sunshin runs up, waving and congratulating Hale, saying his victory was amazing. Grabbing him excitedly, he asks what kind of training Hale did on the side. Because his magic was incredible, the wind spears moved unpredictably, and the spells merged and unfolded mid-air. When Hale asks if he really wants to know, Sunshin eagerly says of course. Hale pauses, building suspense, and then finally answers that magic is a secret. Hale shows his phone to Sunshin and asks if he has seen the interview he did right after the match, pointing out that it's already published. He teases, asking if Sunshin isn't curious about his magic. During the interview, the reporter asks Hale what exactly the instant cast magic he demonstrated was, and how he managed to cast magic instantly, specifically referring to the altered and combined trajectory of the wind spear spell. Before Hale can respond, Kim Kangen arrives and offers to answer on his behalf. Hale recognizes him internally as the Lord of the Blue Tower, Kim Kangen. Kangen tells Hale that he watched the recent match with great interest and believes that the technique used was the 4-circle spell Memorize. As Kangen demonstrates the spell, everyone present reacts with surprise. Kangen explains that Memorize is a spell that allows users to prepare magic in advance and cast it instantly when needed, making instant casting possible. When a reporter asks why such a useful spell isn't widely used, Kangen clarifies that Memorize has its limitations. It can only store spells that are 3 circles below the user's level. He then turns to Hale and asks if he was correct. Hale confirms that Kangen is right and admits he was wondering how to explain it, saying Kangen's explanation was just the help he needed. The listeners quickly conclude that this must mean Hale's skill level is at 4-circle magic. Kangen confirms this with certainty, saying he guarantees it. The interview creates a stir as reporters declare it's a scoop. Being a 4-circle mage at such a young age rivals the records held by the Tower Lords. Watching the interview, Sunshin says that since the Blue Tower Lord himself confirmed it, There's no room for doubt. He turns to Hale and asks if he's really a four-circle mage. Another reporter then questions how Hale managed to ignore the foundational rules of open-source magic. As Kangen begins to explain, Hale interrupts and says he will take the question. He states that ignoring the rules of open-source magic is surprisingly simple. He modified the spell formula. Kangen, taken aback, internally questions the possibility of such a feat, likening it to adding flight functionality to a car, something far from simple. He silently reflects that, had Hale not been AI incompatible, his potential would have been limitless. Hale then declares that he will call these altered spells modification magic. Kangen is stunned, realizing that this development is revolutionary and thinking that from this moment onward, the entire magic community will be shaken. Sunshin, hearing all this, looks confused, repeats the term, and asks whether he is really supposed to believe it. Hale simply says yes, he should. Sunshin sighs and replies that he won't just yet, then says he is heading back to the dorm. Hale asks if he is leaving already. Sunshin responds that he needs to manage his condition, as he's facing a tough opponent tomorrow. The next day at Obelisk Stadium, Sunshin appears to be losing against his opponent. Watching the match, Hale notes that the opponent Sunshin had mentioned turns out to be her Adella Starrett, the prodigy born of a union between France's Starrett family and Korea's House of Mystics. He observes that Adella's magic is unique, attributing it to the secretive moon element magic practiced by the House of Mystics. As Sunshin attempts an attack, Adella counters and defeats him. The referee announces that the match is over, declaring Adella Starrett the winner. Hale reflects on her magic, recognizing it as a secret art that blends light and dark elements, shining moonlight, a signature of the House of Mystics. He notes that secretive magic isn't listed in open source systems, which means its range, power, distance, and properties are undefined. He understands why facing her would be a formidable challenge. When Adella glances in his direction, Hale wonders if she's looking at him. Later, Hale walks with Sunshin, who complains about his bad luck and having Adella as an opponent. He then asks if Hale won his second match, and Hale confirms it. Sunshin is about to tell Hale's next opponent, but at that moment, Adella approaches them and compliments him on his earlier match, saying it was a good fight. Sunshin thanks her, adding that he learned a lot as well. She then turns to Hale and says that he seems to be returning to the way a mage should be. She shares that her reason for enrolling in the academy might be something Hale can help her remember. Hale notes that the Shin family and the House of Mystics have known each other even before enrolling at the academy. He explains that the two families maintain a good relationship, which has given him and Adella many chances to meet at various events. If he has to describe their relationship in one word, he says it would be rivals. He adds that Adella even gave up studying in France and chose to enroll at Obelisk with the goal of surpassing him. However, since the moment he was labeled as AI incompatible, they haven't spoken at all. He reflects that becoming AI incompatible was a turning point in his life, and also a major blow to Adella, who lost her motivation rooted in rivalry. He then tells Adella that he does not yet consider himself someone worthy of being her goal. Adella replies that they will see about that once they fight. Sunshin asks him if he is sure he's ready. When Hale asks ready for what, Sunshin responds by asking if he's pretending not to know. He reminds Hale that his next opponent is Adella Starrett. Hale grows thoughtful after hearing this. The next day in the stadium, Adella is present, but everyone starts wondering where Shin Hale is. The audience mocks him, speculating that he might have chickened out and run away. Some say that despite all his talk in the interview about his modified magic, in the end, it seems to be nothing but words. Others suggest that it's obvious he probably realized he couldn't win against Adella and decided to bail. After waiting for a while, the instructor announces that the time is up. Following the rules, he declares Adella Starrett the winner by default. Just then, Hale arrives and shouts, apologizing for being late. The instructor asks what took him so long, but decides to hear the explanation later. He adds that Hale won't be given any time to catch his breath, and must consider it a penalty for being late, then tells them to take their positions. Adella asks him why he is late. Hale replies that it's nothing major, it's just some preparations. When she asks about the preparations, he says that she's quite strong, so he had to prepare himself properly to beat her. He mentions that it will be an interesting fight. Adella silently wonders if he really prepared in just a day, noting that she can feel the difference. The Shin Hale standing in front of her is not the same as yesterday. She wonders if she will finally get to see his true power. Hale then says that she will have to go all out from the start, and with that, the match begins. Adella gathers her magic and hurls flame revolvers toward Hale. He counters the blazing attack with wind magic, dispersing the flames. She quickly follows up with an earth needle spell, causing the floor beneath him to crack and destabilize. As Hale begins to lose his balance, he flips and leaps into the air. Adella remarks that being mid-air leaves him unable to dodge, then launches her next attack. Hale mutters to himself that it's an attack targeting a vulnerable moment in mid-air. Even if one anticipates it, evasion is nearly impossible. But then he smiles and notes that most people would think so. To everyone's surprise, he forms a defensive barrier mid-air and uses it as a platform to stand. The audience is stunned, murmuring in disbelief at the sight of a mid-air defensive barrier. Even Adella is taken aback, wondering what kind of spell that is. She watches as Hale flips the barrier and uses it like a foothold. She contemplates that Shin Hale is still the same, possessing that unique and unconventional magical sense. Hale, analyzing her next move, realizes that she's about to activate the House of Mystic's secret moon element magic. To counter such a technique, he knows he must go all out. Internally, he declares that to overcome this, he will bring everything he has, even the sun, into this battle. Adella notices the sunlight and realizes that an attack is coming. She says she has no choice but to defend herself and forms a great shield around herself using arrow. Hale leaps at her and strikes the shield. He realizes that by using arrow, a first circle spell, in combination with a third circle defensive spell, she is definitely being cautious. He then lands on the ground, and Adella says it is now her turn. As she begins to attack, she notices the Earthbind spell restraining her feet. She wonders when he cast it, and considers the possibility that he did so the instant he landed. Observing him, she says he is fast, and her eyes can barely keep up with his movements. Hale then forms water missiles. Adella uses her magic to destroy the binding. He hurls the missiles at her, and she dodges them by forming a shield in front of herself. She thinks that he is more manageable than she expected. She wonders how Memorize can only activate spells of the third circle or lower, and since Hale is a fourth circle mage, he can only use first circle spells with it. She thinks that a first circle spell shouldn't be enough to take her down. But then, a wind spear approaches, causing her to lose balance. She wonders when he found the chance to attack and considers whether he had been hiding a modified wind spear in the sunlight all along. As she falls to the ground, Hale comes close and asks if she has forgotten who she is up against. Adella stares. Jeong-sua observes that Hale's battle instincts are beyond imagination. Kangen, clearly impressed, remarks that from the moment Hale evaded the first attack Earth Needle he had planned everything. He says by dodging into the air, Hale baited Adella's attacks. Using barrier as a platform, he climbed higher and shielded himself in the sunlight, blocking Adella's line of sight. Then, from Memorize, he set up a delayed wind spear. He explains further that while descending, Hale used arrow to focus her attention on himself, making it appear like a ground battle with Earthbind. And when he aligned himself with the sun, he launched the precast wind spear. He says to Shin Inhyak that Hale is truly a grand mage of the first circle, and he now understands why Hale has recently earned that title. Shin Inhyak replies that at the end of the day, it is still just first circle magic. Shin Inhyak says that even when in a favorable position, Hale is unable to land a finishing blow. He cannot bring this to an end. He adds that Adella has not even used that magic yet. Adella then says to Hale that he is truly impressive and reminds her of a certain time. She declares that she, too, will now face him with her full strength. Hale takes his stance and says, finally. Adella then activates the ultimate moon attribute hidden magic of the House of Mystics Halo. With her spell, she shatters the ground. Shin Inhyak begins to leave, and when Kangen asks if he is leaving, he replies that the battle is already over, and there is no need to keep watching. Then, Jeong-sua exclaims in surprise. Kangen also shows surprise upon seeing what happens. Adella's expression shifts as Hale dodges her attack using the flame volcano technique. She asks if it is a second circle spell. Hale says he had mentioned being late because he was preparing to defeat her. She then says that Memorize's limit was only up to first circle magic and asks if he has achieved the fifth circle. The night before, in the Obelisk Academy student dormitory, Hale is sitting in his room. He places the Idrid in front of him, saying that Adella is not someone he can beat with only one first circle spell. He grabs the book, mentioning that his fighting style does not naturally align with the covert nature of secret magic. He originally thought he must wait until he fully masters it before overwhelming her. On Idrid's new page, it states that if he can truly wield the technique, he should channel power into the next page's magic circle, and the magic circle will lead him to a new, real arm. He wonders if it is some kind of mechanism. As he begins to touch it, he says there is no need to hesitate, and he will try it. Upon touching the circle, a huge, bright light emerges, and he exclaims that it is glowing again. With that, he finds himself in a library and wonders where he is. A girl appears and says welcome to the page of the first trial. She introduces herself as Alpha, the guide managing the first trial page. Alpha says this is the page of the first trial, inside Idrid's book. He wonders if he is inside the book, not a teleportation to some distant place, but actual space inside the book, and finds it unbelievable. She explains that in this trial, they will test if his Saimai is fully realized. The trial instructions will be given at the start, and if he passes, pages 18 through 31 will be updated with information on second circle magic. He realizes that he must pass the trial to gain the path to the next circle. She concludes the explanation and asks if they shall begin the trial. He agrees and says to start right now. As she understands, she rises and announces that they will now begin the first trial. Hale wondered if he thought the trial would involve a human, but he also did not expect it to be a magical entity. Then a different voice speaks, and he recognizes it as his teacher's voice. He is then provided with a gem, and the voice explains that the name of the gem is Elemental Mana Light. It is an incomplete crystal with 4 mana attributes irregularly mixed together. His task is to purify this gem completely. Hale is shocked upon hearing this. He knows that Elemental Mana Light is an incredibly delicate gem, and that one must manipulate mana very carefully. Within the gem, the 4 types of mana exist in a state of chaos, and now if he is supposed to purify them. He compares it to having to separate sand, salt, sugar, and pepper from a mix perfectly. Holding the stone, he mutters that this is no joke and acknowledges that certainly only someone who has mastered heart's intent could purify it. But he is determined and says this is going to be interesting. Hale then uses his magic to purify the elemental stone. As he gathers the magic, he struggles with it, but feels a shockwave that hits him back into the wall. He mutters that if the mana wavers even a little, there is a shockwave, and they are telling him to be careful. Even when trying to separate the mana, it is so hopelessly mixed up that it won't come apart easily, but he thinks he has an idea of how to do it. He then rises up and says he will try as many times as it takes. Without realizing time passing, he keeps trying over and over to purify it. A small lapse in concentration, and he has to start all over again. He repeats this countless times, and then finally, he succeeds. The elemental mana light is purified. The voice congratulates him on passing the trial and says he has mastered heart's intent. It states that it will update the Book of Idrid with the second ring and the technique for waving the resonance ring. Then he finds himself back in his bed. Seeing the Idrid book with spells appearing, he exclaims that finally, the method to wave the second ring is there. He mutters that before the next match begins, he will definitely master the second ring. Meanwhile, in the arena, Adella uses the halo technique and shatters the ground. Seeing the explosion, Sunchen says he guesses Hale's done for. Adella also begins to leave, saying the match is already over. She thinks to herself that for him to have gotten this strong in such a short time, Shin Hale is just who he really is. But then she concludes that the genius she once set her sights on is no longer there. But suddenly, she hears a loud voice and turns, wondering what it is. Hale activates the second circle's resonance activation, Darkness Blind, and merges 2 infinity circles with free will, becoming his hands and feet. Everyone wonders what is happening. Adella is also surprised by this. He uses Flame Volcano to launch attacks, and as Adella is about to use her defensive magic, she realizes that she cannot block it. She then says he is back and tells him to once again be her goal. With that, he launches the attacks toward her. Everyone is surprised to see her collapse, completely faint. Hale also sits down, completely exhausted. Then the instructor announces that the match is over, and the winner is Shin Hale. Meanwhile, Shin Inhyak leaves, and Kangen asks if he is leaving already. He smiles and says he has other appointments. As he leaves, Kangen remarks that he is not very good at lying. After the match, Hale, wearing his jacket, says he is exhausted. He reflects that the second infinity circle's resonance with the heart's intent circle amplifies magic. He notes that moon attribute magic is a hybrid, combining the range of light magic with the potency of dark magic. By adjusting the dark element's intensity, he manages to narrow the attack range and counters Halo with enhanced dark magic. Since moon magic is a secret magic unique to the House of Mystics, it is not something just anyone can use. But by briefly observing its magical structure, he succeeds in performing delicate mana manipulation. He acknowledges that the resonance circle allows him to analyze magic with strange insight, enabling him to discern the structure of moon magic. The elemental mana light, refined through purification and precise mana control, played a critical role. Without any of these elements, defeating Adella would have been impossible. Meanwhile, in the classroom, Kangen approaches Hale and greets him. Hale wonders upon seeing the master of the Mage Tower, who tells him that he has come to speak with him. Meanwhile, in the guest room, Kangen tells Hale that he is sorry to bother him when he must be tired and mentions that he watched the match, calling it an excellent battle. Hale expresses his gratitude. Kangen then asks him directly if he has reached the 5th circle. Hale wonders internally, realizing that he did use 2nd circle magic during the match. He considers that the Blue Tower Master must think he used Memorize, and if he used 2nd circle magic, it's natural for a 3rd circle or higher mage to mistake him for having reached the 5th circle. He replies that he has not reached the 5th circle. Kangen then asks how he managed to use the 2nd circle magic. Hale responds that if he said he used vision magic, Kangen probably would not believe him. Kangen asks if he means the modified magic he mentioned during the last interview. Hale agrees and thinks to himself that he should go with that explanation. He also reflects that reaching the 5th circle at 18 would cause a massive uproar in the news. He knows that if he later uses 3rd circle magic, it will cause problems, so he has to keep it hidden for now. Kangen then remarks that it is an incredible form of vision magic and asks what it has to do with 2nd circle magic. Hale answers that he has improved the Memorize spell. Kangen Stan approaches him and says that it is one way to do it, expressing that he is truly amazed. He places a hand on Hale's shoulder, and he says he is impressed that Hale has even improved the weaknesses of Memorize. Hale thanks him, then glances at him and notices his red eyes. After a brief pause of staring, Kangen says that since he sees no signs of the monolines typical of a 5th circle mage, he is now certain. He agrees with Hale's statement and concludes that it seems he has not yet reached the 5th circle. Kangen then says he will leave now and will explain everything to the reporters. Hale thanked him and told him to be careful on his way home. After Kangen leaves, Hale reflects that he never imagined the Master of the Magic Tower would verify things using the Red Jade's magic eyes. He recalls that the Red Jade's magic eyes are said to be able to pierce through the essence of mana, and that the Blue Magic Tower Master, Kim Kangen, possesses the world's best detection magic eyes. Hale then says to himself that he must have gotten away with it since even someone like Kangen didn't catch on. He concludes that the Betaneo-style magic is his greatest secret, and it's not something he can reveal recklessly. The next day, another battle ends with Shin Hale as the winner. After the match, as he is leaving, Adella stops him. He notices her condition and sees that she is bandaged. Hale says he thought she had been out for 4 hours, but she is already up. She replies that she is fine now. Hale then asks what is going on. She says that if it is not too much trouble, she would like to get some feedback on their match. She adds that since the finals are still left, if he is tired, they can do it later. Hale responds that they will do it now, since feedback will help him too, and tells her to follow him to the waiting room. As she follows him, she remarks that just like in the previous match, there is so much to learn in terms of strategy and magic usage. She says that someday, she too wants to be like that. Meanwhile, Hale mutters to himself that he can feel the immense heat from behind. Meanwhile, in the headquarters of the Shin group, Shin Si-ah, the eldest daughter of the Shin family, grows frustrated while observing Hale's rising reputation. She says she thought it was all over already. She asks Shin Jihan if he is just going to leave Hale alone. Jihan replies by asking what she expects him to do. Si-ah shouts, questioning what would happen if they bring Hale back into the family. She reminds him of how things were a year ago, saying he knows it better than anyone, and what it would mean to go through that kind of treatment again. Jihan tells her not to worry, explaining that a year ago, Hale might have been a prodigy, but now he is just a piece of trash who can only use 2-circle magic in real combat. He asks if she saw his matches, too. Si-ah responds that people are going crazy over how amazing he is. Jihan insists that all of Hale's opponents so far have only been around the level of 3rd circle students, and against a proper 4th circle magician, Hale should have easily lost. He adds that Hale has a fatal flaw. He is incompatible with AI magic and is barely managing to compensate using tricks and forbidden magic. Taking a sip of tea, he states that in the end, Hale is still far below a typical 4th circle magician, with a much lower skill level, regardless of what others believe. Si-ah confirms, saying that no matter how hard Hale tries, he's just crawling on the ground. Jihan concludes that an incompatible will always be an incompatible. When she asks what they should do if, by any chance, Hale ever poses a threat to the next head of the family, Jihan smashes his cup and says they can deal with him, then it won't be too late. Meanwhile, in the arena, the final match concludes as the instructor announces that the match is over and declares Shin Hale the champion of the second-year midterms. The crowd erupts with excitement, chatting animatedly and proclaiming that the prodigy has returned. Some exclaim that Shin Hale is a genius who uses forbidden magic that even surpasses AI magic. Sunchen also shouts out, cheering for Hale and grabbing him enthusiastically, saying that everyone is recognizing his skills and that he really did it. Hale tells Sunchen to calm down. Among the crowd, a few gossipers scoff, questioning what Hale would be without his forbidden magic. Meanwhile, the instructor approaches Hale and congratulates him, expressing pride as his homeroom teacher. Sunchen then asks the teacher if he will treat them all to a celebration for Hale's victory. The teacher laughs and replies that he was already planning to treat them, so there's no need to ask. However, Hale apologizes, saying he truly wants to join, but has an important appointment. Sunchen protests, insisting that a party without the guest of honor isn't the same. Hale, already leaving, apologizes again, explaining that it's something very important. On his way out, Hale reflects that he has a very important promise to keep. A driver awaits him and greets him respectfully, saying they have been expecting him and that the head of the family is waiting. The driver then offers to escort him to the main residence. Upon reaching the Shin family estate, Hale steps toward the entrance and notes that it has been a year since it was discovered he was incompatible with AI magic. After rebelling against his cold father and moving into the academy dorms, he had not been allowed to return home. Now, walking through the familiar halls, he observes that nothing has changed. It is exactly as he remembers. Standing before his father's study, he thinks to himself that he has finally made it back. He knocks on the door. From inside, his father orders him to come in, and Hale enters the study room. He greets his father, saying that it has been a while. Shin Inhyak orders him to sit down. Inhyak then states that he used to think Hale was a failure, someone with a casting speed 20 times slower than average and spells that would vanish the moment focus was lost. As he walks around Hale, he continues, pointing out that Hale was also incapable of multicasting, making him a prime example of a useless and incompatible person. Gripping the back of the chair, Inhyak adds that despite these flaws, everyone acknowledged Hale's exceptional talent. That was why he had suggested Hale switch to AI magic to make the best use of what he had. Inhyak says he had little hope for even that, thinking it was just a desperate act by someone who had reached a dead end. Hale responds that he understands, father. Inhyak goes on to mention the article published by Beek Sahyak, admitting he thought it would be the final blow that would bring Hale to his senses after a humiliating defeat. But instead, Hale completely defied expectations. Inhyak acknowledges that Hale overcame his incompatibility and created transformation magic. He states that Hale has won this wager and that his combat performance is indeed worthy of being called that of a true mage. Surprised, Hale quietly says thanks to him. Inhyak then declares that from this point onward, the family will give Hale full support. He instructs Hale to tell him everything he needs for the pursuit of magic and states that he will grant him permission to return to the Shin family as its rightful successor. He tells Hale to serve the family well. But then, leaning in close and placing a firm hand on Hale's forehead, Inhyak warns him. If he ever senses that Hale is stagnating or regressing, then he will personally destroy Hale's circles. Hale thinks that, as expected of his father, this is the intimidating aura of an 8-circle mage. He feels afraid, but he also believes this is his final chance. He tells his father that he understands. His father sits down and asks what Hale's goal is, reminding him that he once aimed to become the head of the Shin family. He lists Hale's siblings Jihan, Si-Ah, Inhyak, and Minji and points out that, right now, Hale is the most behind among them. Hale replies that, as he has said before, his ultimate goal is to become the head of the Shin family and nothing less. He adds that his first step is to make everyone in the family acknowledge him. His father then asks how he plans to do that. Hale responds that he intends to participate in the World Academy Olympiad in 2 months. He explained that competitors from around the world would be joining the event and that he plans to bring home the gold medal. The Olympiad, he says, is a tournament for mages held annually and exclusively for academy students under the age of 20. It is known as the Mages Olympics and is considered a dream stage, drawing the attention of the entire world, with a level matching that of professional adult tournaments. Inhyak remarks that the country's best record so far is a silver medal won by the Blue Tower Lord and questions whether Hale realizes how unrealistic his claim sounds. He adds that Hale can't be unaware of this. Hale replies that he knows, which is why he has a condition. For the 2 months leading up to the tournament, he asks his father to prevent his siblings from hindering him. Inhyak thinks that Hale is a bold kid, using a gold medal he might not even win as leverage to immediately demand protection. He then says that normally he would refuse something like this, but it might not be a bad idea. The next morning, Hale wakes up in his room and wonders if he fell asleep. As soon as he returned home from the family estate, he started looking into the requirements for the second test. Although he has passed the first test, he knows that to reach the third circle, he must clear the second one. Right now, he is at a complete loss. The only clue he has is the concept of resonance. He understands that it means he needs to raise it to the level of the mystery stage of the second circle. Holding the Idrid book, he remarks that to take the second circle exam, he just needs to touch a specific part and move his mana according to the principles of consonance. Upon touching it, the only clue he receives is that the ring of judgment and the ring of resonance must connect or regenerate organically. When the rings form, he wonders if this is it. Still puzzled, he decides to go for a walk to clear his head. While walking outside, he tells himself that sometimes he needs to clear his mind like this to think better. As he continues walking and having breakfast, he decides to dig deeper into the realm of resonance. Someone throws a bag at Hale's face, and he falls down. The girl apologizes and asks if he is alright. He replies that it hurts. When he looks up, he sees that it is Adella. As they walk, he asks her why the plastic bag flew toward him. She explains that she had been spinning it around in joy because she was about to drink banana milk, and then it flew away. She apologizes again sincerely. Hale says that it is alright and that thanks to her, he got a banana milk too. He then asks if she still only drinks that. She shows him the other plastic bag full of banana milk and says, of course, it is the best drink ever made by humans. She mentions that she heard he went back home. Hale replies that he returned to the magic tower yesterday. She says that it is a relief, and then asks if it is still his dream to become the head of the magic tower. Hale asks if he ever said something like that. She replies that they talked about it often. Hale says that it is not his dream anymore. She asks if that means he has compromised with reality, adding that, considering the magic tower has many prominent siblings, becoming the head is not so easy after all. Hale asks what she is talking about and says that his dream is to become the master of magic and stand at the pinnacle of all mages. He corrects himself and says, no, of all magic towers that is his goal. Adella responds that the pinnacle of all mages is an incredible goal, a goal truly beyond imagination. As someone following him, she finds it pretty intense. Meanwhile, in the evening at the Shin estate, Sia expresses her frustration to Jihan and asks if he is not worried at all. He replies that their father must have his reasons and mutters that he cannot believe such conditions have been set. When they go to their father's study, Jihan asks why they have been called there. Their father tells them that, knowing their personalities well, he has a command for them not to interfere with Hale at all for the next 2 months. Sia shouts and asks why. Jihan stops her and politely asks their father if he can explain the reason. Inhyak says that they both know Hale officially returned to the magic tower the previous day. Since Hale is still a minor and has spent a year away from the family, he thinks it is necessary to give him 2 months to adapt. He adds that the two of them would have especially kept a close watch on Hale due to the competition for headship. Jihan says he understands and asks if there is anything else. Inhyak replies that there is not and tells them they must be tired and should go and rest. Sia asks her brother why he left without saying anything. Jihan replies that he just cannot accept the situation. He says that since Minhyuk and Minji are not interested in competing for the head position, he understands why they were not called to that meeting. But leaving Hale alone just because of a 1-year gap does not sit right with him. He adds that if it were their usual father, he would have said a 1-year gap disqualifies someone as an heir. Furthermore, the protection for being young only applies until the age of 16, before AI imprinting, so 17 should be beyond that range. Frustrated, he questions why their father would say such a thing. Sia wonders if their father already before she can finish. Jihan interrupts and says that is not the case. He believes Hale has not shown enough to their father yet. He concludes that perhaps their father has seen some potential or is interested in the mysterious magic system Hale has mastered. He also considers the possibility that their father and Hale made a deal. Sia asks what kind of deal it could be and then shouts that it is true this is not a decision their usual father would make. She then asks Jihan if she should call back all the people she had following Hale. Jihan advises her to do so, unless they are confident they will not get caught by the Shadows, their father's direct intelligence unit. He explains that the Shadows are a secret force of the Magic Tower, an elite team that handles infiltration, information gathering, and escort missions. He says there is nothing they cannot do. As he begins to leave, he tells her that, for reference, he has already withdrawn all the surveillance he had on Hale. Sia asks what he is going to do. Jihan replies that he is heading out first. He remarks that even if Sia agrees, doing nothing for 2 months does not sit well with him. If Hale made some sort of deal with their father, it could be risky. He says he will have to consult the Black Tower. At Obelisk Academy, the instructor informs the class that all the midterm evaluations are now complete and commends everyone for their efforts. He starts a round of applause and announces that the first-place student in their class is Shin Hale. Handing Hale the award sheet, he states that among all 17-year-olds in the country, Hale could be considered the best and congratulates him. He adds that since Hale is already in first place, he might as well maintain that position for the next 2 months and aim to compete in the Academy Olympiad. Hale replies that this is exactly what he intends to do. Meanwhile, some students begin gossiping, questioning what Hale is saying, and accusing him of bragging after winning with just vision magic. They mockingly speculate that in 2 months, or even just a week, he will lose that reputation, believing that the limitations of a misfit will soon become apparent. Hale then quietly returns to his seat. After class, Sunshin stretches his arms and says it's finally over, complaining about having to sit through 8 periods of theory lessons. Hale replies that at least tomorrow is only practical training, then mockingly hits Sunshin, reminding him that he told him to get some exercise. Sunshin teases back, saying he guesses he can't even joke about Hale being a weakling in magic anymore. Hale responds that if he's upset, he should just work out to overcome his weakness. Sunshin says he'd love to, but claims he's in bad shape right now. Hale accuses him of just not wanting to which Sunshin grabs him and insists he's being honest. It's not that he hates exercising, he just hates doing it with Hale. When Hale asks what's so bad about him, Sunshin replies that he's just scared of the way people look at Hale. Meanwhile, in the Obelisk Academy training room, Hale and Sunshin are training together, lifting heavy weights. Other students watch in astonishment, wondering who he is and whether that weight is even something a person can lift. They recognize him as Shin Hale, the sophomore who took first place in the midterms. After finishing his set, Hale wipes the sweat from his forehead and remarks that while he had been focusing on mastering the Bateneo-style magic, he had seriously neglected his physical training. He recalls that even in the Book of Idrid, it's clearly stated that the Infinity Circle, being a vast circuit that flows through the entire body, interacts directly with physical condition. A strong body and a strong circle enhance each other, creating synergy and boosting efficiency. To reach optimal performance, he needs to master both exercise and magic. Meanwhile, during the Monster Rush practical training, Hale fights against a group of monsters, using his magic to defeat them one by one. As the last 2 monsters leap toward him, he swiftly retreats from his position, causing the 2 to collide mid-air. He immediately casts his Flaming Vulcan spell, striking them both down. With that, Shin Hale's Monster Rush practical training concludes. The instructor announces that the result is a perfect clear full mark. Hale expresses his gratitude. Later, while sitting and catching his breath, he notices his hand and reflects that, thanks to the Infinity Circle, his physical abilities seem to have increased by 1.5 times. He thinks that once he reaches the 3rd circle, it will improve even more. He determines that he must further enhance the Infinity Circle. He begins to focus on the Ring of Will and the Ring of Resonance, circulating both manas throughout his entire body. He adjusts the vibration frequency and rotation rate of each ring by 12% and 4%, respectively, and increases the mana purity of the Ring of Will by 9%. Pushing further, he starts huffing from the intense effort. He realizes that his sync rate has reached 99%, but no matter how many times he tries, that last 1% refuses to budge. Still, he believes that at the Circle Master level, he will break through. While running soon after, he senses that someone is spying on him. Reacting swiftly, he throws a punch. The intruder dodges and counters with an attack of their own. Hale quickly avoids it and demands to know who it is. He then recognizes the attacker. It's Beak Sahyuk. Beak Sahyuk, clearly frustrated, tries to punch Hale again, snarling that he's really good at dodging like a rat. Hale, calmly picking up his earphones from the ground, remarks that it's the weekend, and wonders aloud if Sahyuk didn't go home, not because he didn't want to, but because he couldn't. He mocks him, pointing out that being on probation means even if he wanted to return home, he isn't allowed. Sahyuk snaps, telling him to shut up before he kills him. Hale continues taunting, saying that after using his family's power to such an extent, this is all he could manage. He adds that even without the probation, he wouldn't go home either, because it would be too embarrassing. Then, teasing further, he asks Sahyuk if it's because he doesn't have anywhere to go. Enraged, Sahyuk shouts for him to shut his mouth and throws a fire magic attack. Hale, surprised, questions whether Sahyuk is seriously attacking over something so trivial, using magic in the street, no less. As Sahyuk leaps toward him to strike, Hale calmly reads his movement, grabs him by the arm and back collar, and slams him to the ground. Then the police arrive and restrain Beak Sahyuk, who protests furiously, shouting that they should let him go because he's going to kill Hale today. Hale calmly informs the officers that he had to subdue Sahyuk because he attacked him with magic, and points out that the entire incident is recorded on CCTV. He adds with disbelief that Sahyuk actually used magic in a place like this. The officer tells him they'll discuss the details the following day at the academy since it's already late, and instructs him to return to the dormitory. Internally, Hale directs a thought at Sahyuk, urging him to keep behaving that way in the future. The next day at Obelisk Academy, students gather around the notice board, chattering about what happened. One says they heard Beak Sahyuk used magic on the street over the weekend. It was total chaos. The posted notice states that Beak Sahyuk has been given 10 demerit points for using magic both on and off campus. Another student says it's only 10 points, asking if that's all. Someone else agrees, pointing out that such an offense is normally grounds for expulsion. Overhearing the gossip, Hale internally reflects that Sahyuk is causing that much trouble and receiving only 10 demerit points, which is no surprise. It's exactly what he expected: the direct intervention of the Beak family. As a rising new family, they've been donating large sums to the academy in their bid to obtain noble status, so the academy likely couldn't issue a harsher punishment. As Hale walks off, thinking that by now, Beak Sahyuk is probably getting a beating at home. Meanwhile, Beak Sahyuk's father yells at him over the phone, demanding to know if staying quiet until graduation is really that difficult. He warns that if their family fails to receive a title, it will be entirely Sahyuk's fault. Sahyuk lowers his voice and apologizes, saying he understands and will keep that in mind. His father ends the call abruptly. Furious, Sahyuk hurls his phone to the ground, shouts Hale's name in frustration, and stomps on the phone, blaming him for everything. At that moment, Instructor Smith approaches and comments that it seems Sahyuk holds quite a grudge against Hale. Sahyuk definitely asks if that's not allowed. Instructor Smith calmly replies that feelings of like or dislike are a matter of the heart. He asks if Sahyuk wants revenge on Shin Hale. Suppose it is not truly what he desires. Meanwhile, in his room, Hale looks at his phone, reflecting on Sahyuk's incident. He considers that while he could protest to the academy, he actually gained something from the situation. He then reads a mail from his father stating that the negotiation with the Beak family has concluded. In return for keeping the incident under wraps, the Shin family has received 3% of the Beak family's mining rights. His father commends him and adds that if Hale wants any rewards from those rights, he should say so. The mail explains that for the Beak family to obtain a noble title, maintaining good relations with prestigious families is essential, not just impressing the academy. Given that, they were forced to take extraordinary steps. Hale notes to himself that this was the right move for the Beak family. After all, the victim of the incident is none other than himself, a direct descendant of the Shin family. Resolving the situation quickly and favorably was inevitable for them, but the conditions offered show just how desperately the Beak family values earning a title. A title is recognized as a symbol of a family's status, something akin to a defining emblem, like the mage of a mage family or the mystic of a mystic family. It distinctly marks the hierarchy among families. Beak Sahyuk, as a result of his actions, is essentially expelled from the Beak family. Considering his current level of skill, he no longer poses any threat. Hale then picks up Idrid and reminds himself to stop acting like Santa Claus. It's time to focus solely on refining his cultivation techniques. The next day, noticing the instructors stationed all around, Hale wonders if the control over faculty has tightened due to the Beak Sahyuk incident. Instructor Smith approaches him, and Hale greets him. Smith remarks that he has noticed for a while now that it seems Hale really dislikes him. Hale admits it, then quickly corrects himself, saying he doesn't. Smith responds that it's understandable he had said some harsh things in the past, but assures that everything was sincere advice, so he asks not to be misunderstood. He extends his hand and suggests they start over from now on. As Hale begins to shake his hand, he suddenly senses an odd mana and wonders what this uncomfortable feeling is. Smith, smiling, congratulates Hale, though belatedly, on placing first in the midterm exams, and expresses his sincere hope that Hale has found his own path. Yet, Hale remains puzzled by the strange sensation in the mana. Hale then realizes that the strange mana is magic, and the ominous black mana surrounding Instructor Smith comes from the Black Tower. The Black Tower, unlike the 12 existing colored towers, is an unofficial tower that follows a different path. It is a group of degenerate criminals established by a magician who calls himself the Black Magician King. He begins to wonder whether Instructor Smith is affiliated with the Black Tower and considers the possibility that other Black Tower magicians might be in the school. He questions how and since when, but then reminds himself that it is not important right now. First, he needs to understand the magic formula to handle the situation. As he starts detecting it, he finds the formula familiar. It is a mind control magic. However, since his brain is resistant to external interference, Instructor Smith's mind control magic does not work for him. Thanks to that, he realizes he will survive this time, and since they have not figured this out yet, his next move is to pretend to be affected by mind control and extract all the information about the Black Tower. Hale then acts normally with Smith, who says that it is good. Smith mutters that a disabled fool who cannot even use an AI chip dares to act and make him apologize. He gives Hale a chip and instructs him to always carry it without questioning why. Hale responds with a yes, muttering that if that is all. Smith then tells Hale to explain his mutation magic. Hale starts pretending to deteriorate and thinks that this is something he cannot reveal. Observing him, Smith concludes that Hale's unconscious desire to keep the secret of his vision magic is strong, and then tells him to stop. Mind control magic interferes with the target's brain, simplifying emotions or controlling them as intended, a representative magic of the Black Tower. If a high-level circle magic user uses this magic, it can even cause the collapse of the person's mind, making it an extremely dangerous forbidden magic. And as Hale observes just now, if the person affected by the magic has strong willpower regarding specific memories, attempting to extract those memories can cause their mind to break down. Hale wonders, seeing how easily Smith gives up. It appears that mutation magic is not the target he is after. Smith grits his teeth, saying that Hale has a vision magic that does not match his status, so he tries to sell him off, and he cannot let the mission fail. He states that once the mission is over, he will take Hale's vision magic from him. Then, with a snap, he releases Hale from the brain control magic and asks if he is alright, noting that he has been spacing out during their conversation and must be very tired. He leaves, saying he won't bother him anymore and wishes him good luck. Meanwhile, Hale sits on a bench, looking at the chip and thinking that it is an illegal AI chip. Receiving this means their goal is to frame him as an illegal AI user. They are trying to destroy his reputation. He mutters that Instructor Smith has no personal reason to ruin him. Despite their bad relationship, someone must have requested the involvement of the Black Tower. From this, he can roughly estimate the scale of the situation. Thinking about Beek Sahyuk, he concludes that it is too big a move for someone currently in seclusion. So the likely suspects are one of the two brothers or the two sisters. They aim to tarnish his image and exclude him from the succession competition. There are 4 people with clear motives. His older sister, Minji, is not actively participating in the succession contest and would not do something like this. His older brother Inhyak is involved but lacks the courage to plan something this bold. That leaves the remaining 2 as the most probable culprits. He considers capturing Instructor Smith to interrogate him, but decides against it. The Black Tower is highly sensitive to leaks, and Smith might not even know who the mastermind is. Capturing him could just trigger a cover-up operation, and getting entangled with the Black Tower at this point would not be good for him. Hale then arrives at the Blue Tower to meet Kim Kangan. Kangan welcomes him and asks what he wants to talk about. Hale observes that the Blue Tower master, Kim Kangan, seems colder than usual, but he decides that now is the time to speak. Kangan says he told Hale not to act like a burden, but it seems like it's now or never. Hale mutters to himself, wondering what kind of research Kangan is conducting that has him so on edge. He then asks if Kangan is researching something. Kangan replies that he is studying a rather unusual magic stone. Upon seeing it, Hale recognizes it as an elemental mana stone and thinks to himself that it's a rare opportunity. Kangan sits down and says that since they are both busy, they should get straight to the point. He asks if the matter Hale mentioned is so important that it couldn't wait, and that he insisted on talking in person. Hale mutters that Kangan is getting a bit hysterical and thinks that, at this rate, Kangan won't listen to anything he says. He decides to negotiate. Hale then says that before they get to the main point, he has something to tell them about the magic stone the Tower Master is researching specifically, the elemental mana stone. Kangan asks how Hale knows about it, noting that not even its name or existence has been revealed, and warns him to speak carefully. Hale quickly explains that he didn't plant a spy in the Blue Tower or steal any information. Kangan then asks how he knows. Hale replies that the reason is simple, and he brings out his own mana stone, saying that he has one too. Kangan is surprised to see the stone. Hale says it is a perfectly crafted elemental mana stone. Kangin, surprised, asks Hale if he, by any chance, crafted the elemental mana stone himself. Hale responds that yes, he was the one who crafted it. Kangin mutters in disbelief that it sounds ridiculous. He reflects that even James Pillar, the top-tier mage and engineer from the Red Tower known as the world's best in magical ore crafting, even the elite crafters of the Blue Tower, famous for their craftsmanship, and even himself one of the top 3 crafters in the world could not craft such a gem. And now an ordinary high school student claims to have done it. Kangin then asks if it was Hale who possessed this magic stone, or if it was merely by chance. Hale answers that yes, he figured the Blue Tower was the only place capable of handling such a magic stone and happened to bring it along. Kangin, softening his tone, asks politely how Hale obtained the stone. Hale declines to comment, saying he got it by chance and was lucky enough to craft it. That's all he is willing to reveal. Kangin acknowledges that Hale must have incredible luck and agrees not to press further, affirming that mages have the right to keep their secrets. Hale thanks him. Kangin then asks if he can take a closer look. Holding the stone, he notes that it is the only magic stone in existence that contains all 4 elements simultaneously. He then asks what the purpose of bringing it was. Hale answers that he wants to use it to craft an artifact. Kangin inquires what kind of artifact: clothing, decorative, or a weapon. Hale says that if it only needs to enhance elemental magic efficiency, then anything will do. Kangin understands but reminds him that high-quality magic stones require high-quality materials, and the crafting fee will be quite high. He then apologizes and assumes the cost will be covered by Hale's family, since he is from a direct magical bloodline. Hale rejects that idea and places a finger to his lips, asking that the artifact project be kept secret from the family and from everyone else. Kangin remarks that Hale is quite the sly one and then asks how the payment will be handled. Showing him the estimated cost, he asks if Hale can manage it without the family's help. Hale says no, and instead offers to craft the elemental mana stone right there in front of Kangin, the Magic Tower Master. Kangin, excited, asks if that means Hale is going to hand over the crafting method to him immediately. He agrees, saying that with this much, the payment will be more than covered, and they will even be in a position to offer something extra. Hale then asks if he can make one more request. Kangin asks what kind of request it is and whether it has to do with the main topic. Hale hands over the illegal AI chip. Observing it, Kangin identifies it as an innovation leveling chip, an illegal AI chip, and asks where Hale got it. Hale replies that a mage from the Black Tower at the Academy gave it to him, and that there are Black Tower mages hiding within the Obelisk Academy. He asks Kangin to help him deal with them. As Jiang Sua drops Hale off, she tells him to be careful when going in and to take care. He replies that they will meet again soon. Later, lying on his bed, Hale exclaims that he got lucky. He hadn't expected Kim Kangin to be researching the elemental mana stone. He mutters to himself that thanks to that, he can keep the project a secret from his father and still proceed with crafting the artifact. Originally, he had planned to use the 3% share of the Beak family's mining rights to strike a deal, but now he can hold on to that share for a bit longer if everything goes smoothly. Earlier, during their conversation, Kangin had expressed his skepticism, saying it was hard to believe. He mentioned the rumors about Obelisk Academy's strict security and questioned how there could be mages from the Black Tower hiding there, especially with the only evidence being an illegal AI chip. Hale asked if it could really be that difficult to accept. Kangin had responded that under normal circumstances, the Blue Tower wouldn't act based on student suspicions and unverified information, but then added that, fine, they would go ahead and take the risk. While in the elevator, Hale talks on the phone with Kangin, who asks if he has arrived. Hale replies that he has and says he will rely on Kangin to follow the plan. Kangin assures him that as long as the information is accurate, the Blue Magic Tower will not make any mistakes. Hale responds that he trusts him and says he will contact him again later. Hale then joins his siblings at the dining table and announces his arrival. Shin Minji, the second daughter of the Shin family, greets him warmly, saying it has been a while. Hale replies that she hasn't changed. She asks if that is a compliment, and Hale confirms it is. She remarks that he has grown a lot and soon might be taller than their brother Minhyak. Minhyak tells Minji not to say such ominous things, then welcomes Hale, saying that while it's hard to be fully happy, he still welcomes him. Hale thanks him and comments that he is still as straightforward as ever. Hale then greets Jihan and Sia, saying it has been a while. Jihan remarks that Hale has lost his baby fat and looks more like a man now. Sia says it has been a while as well. Hale thinks to himself that despite their smiling faces, it is obvious they are planning to devour him, confirming his suspicion that the culprit is among them. Jihan suggests they sit and eat while talking, expressing curiosity about why Hale called them. Hale replies that it is nothing special. It is just a chance to see everyone after a long time. Si-ah questions why he called them for something so trivial. Hale responds that even if he hadn't set this up, either Jihan or Si-ah would have arranged a meeting anyway, and asks if he is wrong. Si-ah shouts that he is insufferable and, pointing her finger at him, demands to know his plan. Hale asks what she means by that. She accuses him of playing dumb and asks whether he plans to join the succession race or not. Hale asks if she would believe him if he says he is not interested. She replies that no one would. Hale then questions the point of asking. Jihan tells Si-ah that it is not the way to ask, saying that in matters like this, words are not enough, and that Hale should prove it through actions. He then turns to Hale, mentioning that he heard Hale acquired a nice piece of vision magic, called transformation magic, and asks if he is thinking of sharing it with the family. Jihan remarks that by sharing the vision magic, Hale would be proving he has given up on the air competition, but adds that it shouldn't be taken as a trick. Hale then says emotionally that this vision magic is his only hope. As someone unsuited to be a mage, it is his only chance to live as one, and he can't just share it lightly. He adds that it is not even about the succession race. Minji becomes emotional and says that it can't be helped since it's their youngest's only hope. She wipes her tears, and Hale thanks her for understanding. Inhyak suggests putting the pointless competition aside for now and just catching up and relaxing. Minji agrees, saying she would love to hear more from Hale. Then suddenly, everyone's phones ring with breaking news. They all check their phones, wondering what is going on. Jihan checks a message that says it is an urgent update. One of the Obelisk Academy staff members has been identified as a criminal mage affiliated with the Black Tower. Lang Smith, the second son of the prestigious Smith family in France, has been arrested. The arresting officer is Jeong Sua, a 6th Circle mage and secretary to Kim Kangan of the Blue Tower. Jihan quickly puts his phone back into his pocket. Hale, observing him, remarks to himself that he has found him. He wonders if it is Shin Jihan. Late at night, Kangan, on the call, tells Hale that it looks like he was right. He asks how Hale knew Lang Smith would target the training supplies. Hale replies that he simply made a logical deduction based on the intel he had. Given that Instructor Smith had infiltrated the academy, it seemed likely he would act within the campus grounds. Considering the timing of the mind control spell on him and the schedule for the week, the only day Smith could make a move was Friday, the day of the big battle survival exam. If he intended to interfere with the survival test, he would have to tamper with the training materials. Since the usual supply inspection takes place in the afternoon, the day before the test, the only time to act unnoticed would be Thursday night. Hale explains that he had the Blue Tower monitor the supply room while he gathered his siblings to identify who hired the Black Tower agent. As a result, they caught Instructor Smith. He also managed to suspect Shin Jihan's connection with the Black Tower. He says he executed the plan perfectly, gathering information without compromising himself, and calls it a flawless operation. As he walks, Hale adds that his only regret is the connection between Jihan and Instructor Smith, as they could not catch decisive evidence. However, he believes he will eventually uncover it if he keeps digging. Kangan says that he intended to help out this time, but ended up receiving help instead. He notes that the Blue Tower's reputation has skyrocketed for solving the case and promises to return the favor later. Hale responds that he won't say no to something Kangan offers. Kangan says he likes honesty and that he will wrap things up on his end. Hale replies with thanks and tells him to take care of it. Suddenly, someone attacks Hale from behind, knocking him to the ground. As he looks up, he sees that it's Beak Sahyak. Without hesitation, Sahyak hurls a fire magic attack at him again. Hale, startled by the sheer speed, quickly forms a water shield in front of himself. Struggling to maintain it, he realizes the power behind the attack is overwhelming. He tries to reinforce the shield, but Sahyak casts another fire spell, breaking through and blasting Hale backward. Seeing his injured hand, Hale remarks to himself that, as expected, he couldn't dodge it completely. Sahyak laughs, mocking him, saying this is the difference in their skills that Hale keeps crawling up even though he's just a defective piece, and now he's seeing the consequences. Looking at Sahyak, Hale begins to sense that something is off. He notices Sahyak's bloodshot eyes and flushed red skin. He wonders if it's the effect of the illegal doping drug Berserker. The hallmark of the drug is that it forces the mana circle to accelerate, causing the user's blood vessels to rupture, turning their appearance into that of a Berserker, a warrior bathed in blood. But what's more concerning is that once someone uses it, they fight until death. Hale shouts at Sahyak, asking if he is crazy. Sahyuk rushes toward him, denying the accusation and claiming that he is perfectly fine. Hale notices the approaching attack is red mana burning infection. As Sahyuk grabs him, he insists that he is back to normal and declares that Hale is going to die. He then uses the burning infection, causing Hale to collapse to the ground. Seeing Hale still moving, Sahyuk remarks with irritation that he is still alive. He acts strangely, expressing anger that Hale has blocked his magic twice, and starts screaming. Then suddenly, Sahyuk returns to normal and casually remarks that it happened. Hale observes that, as expected, those mood swings confirm Sahyuk has definitely gone berserk. Hale then wonders what does not make sense, which is the power of Sahyuk's magic. No matter how much berserker he takes, it should not boost his power this much. He considers the possibility and decides to check, beginning to gather his magic and launching wind spears at him. Sahyuk begins gathering fire mana in response. Hale thinks he should have been more careful with the wind spear, and suddenly appears below Sahyuk, admitting he did not expect it to come to this. He attacks, prompting Sahyuk to scream that it is already below him. Hale then uses an arrow boom and realizes that the hit has landed. His eyes widen when he sees Sahyuk using the flame shotgun, a spell with high firepower at close range but a short range of only 8 meters. He notes it can be easily dodged by running and does just that, asking if Sahyuk hated him enough to even use an AI chip. Sahyuk dodges his magic and denies the accusation, asking what nonsense he is talking about. Hale says that, as expected, Sahyuk doesn't even remember. Sahyuk questions why he would use that on someone he sees as a defective piece and casts more magic, telling Hale to die quietly if he's going to talk nonsense. Hale explains that the AI chip boosts the user's body, enhancing their magic formula and changing the power and range of magic. He adds that he is researching structural changes in circles and mana, as well as transformations of magic formulas. Because of that, he is highly sensitive to changes in magic due to mana amplification and circle acceleration. He notes, whether it is lucky or unlucky, he is actually gaining hints from both the illegal AI chip and Berserker. Sahyuk, frustrated, casts another spell and demands to know what Hale is talking about. Hale prepares to dodge and says he is not thanking him, stating it is just a matter of whether he finishes it at dawn or finishes it now. Hale reflects that those who reach this stage transcend their own limits. Recently, he has been contemplating deeply while staring at Idrid's book. He considers that the real issue lies in the penalty combining and accelerating different types of circles places a heavy strain on both the body and mind. He notes that the penalty is about duration. Once someone reaches the second circle mystery and activates resonance, it lasts for 3 minutes, after which the mana circle stops functioning for 12 hours. Therefore, it must be used only after careful thought. Sahyuk sees him muttering and mocks him, asking if he is scared. Hale closes his eyes and thinks that 3 minutes of resonance is enough. He then uses the earth needle, which pierces the ground and strikes Sahyuk in the leg. Sahyuk growls in pain and exclaims that it's third circle magic, questioning how Hale could possibly use it. Hale responds rhetorically, asking how he thinks he did it. Cursing him, Sahyuk throws fireballs at Hale, who calmly remarks that Sahyuk is not only bad at magic, but also terrible at cursing. It's too glitchy. He blocks the fireballs using a water shield. Sahyuk laughs and calls him an idiot for trying to block it again, saying he will just burn to death like last time. Hale surrounds himself with a water swirl and says Sahyuk should at least know what he's talking about. If he had paid attention to the earth needle earlier, he would have realized that this water shield is different from before. He declares that Sahyuk's magic can no longer touch him. Sahyuk, enraged, repeats Hale's name and rushes toward him, accusing him of becoming stronger by using illegal doping. Hale calmly declares that it's over. He forms a darkness-blind swirl beneath himself and says there is no room for sympathy. Sahyuk brought this on himself. If he had shown any hesitation or reluctance to kill, things wouldn't have reached this point. Hale hides behind the darkness magic while Sahyuk yells out, demanding him to stop hiding and come out. Hale casts a spell that binds Sahyuk with chains. Sahyuk struggles and protests that such weak binding spells can't hold him. Hale calmly says that it's already too late, and the only mercy he can offer is to end things quickly and painlessly. Sahyuk angrily retorts that it isn't over yet and blames Hale for ruining what could have been a changed life. Hale moves behind him and questions whether Sahyuk's life would truly have changed, expressing doubt. Sahyuk, disoriented, asks where he is. Hale tells him that he would have just found someone else to blame. He then asks if Sahyuk knows the real reason why people avoid using illegally modified AI chips, aside from the physical side effects. Hale touches the illegal chip embedded in Sahyuk's neck, causing him to scream in pain. Hale explains that he briefly synchronized his mana frequency with the overheated chip and notes how painful it must be, even with Berserker in Sahyuk's system. Sahyuk, now huffing, begins to plead for him to stop. Hale continues, explaining that an overclocked AI and a body pushed to its limit can easily collapse from just a minor external trigger. He adds that he should be thanked for being the scapegoat. Because of Sahyuk's reckless actions, the Blue Tower will likely extract a substantial benefit from the Beak family, possibly 30% or even 40% of the Mana Stone mining rights. Hale finishes by saying goodbye to Beak Sahyuk and thanks him for the gift, calling him a tree that gives endlessly. With that, he removes the chip from Sahyuk's neck. Sahyuk then collapses to the ground. Hale picks up his phone and calls his father. Inhyak answers, asking what prompts the call at such a late hour. Hale responds that he knows his father has been watching everything. Despite the late hour and the chaos in the dormitory, not a single student or police officer has shown up, which confirms his suspicions. Inhyak replies that the students might have been evacuated and adds that simply being able to hold off the police isn't enough to accuse him directly. Hale counters by saying that while many could delay the police, only Inhyak would choose to sit back and watch the fight unfold. Anyone else would have intervened or perhaps even attacked him from behind. He points out that because of his father's earlier protection order, his older siblings can't place him under surveillance. Inhyak laughs and agrees, then reveals that he had assigned Siak Hyan to watch over him. Inhyak asks Hale, knowing that he is being watched, why he didn't ask for help. Hale replies that it was to show him the third circle's magic. Inhyak then remarks that he doubts Hale has achieved such a level in a short time, and asks if that means Hale has been hiding the fact that he can use third circle magic. Hale admits that it's a lie. In reality, he has only used the resonance effect from a second circle master. He explains that he still lacks power, and if it were known that he was using third circle magic, the interference from his other siblings would have been unimaginable. He also notes that Mr. Siak Hyan is currently using sound blocking and hallucination magic to conceal the situation from the surroundings. Inhyak acknowledges that it's not a bad move and informs Hale that he has sent a car, instructing him to go home and stay there for the night. Hale agrees, thanks him, says he will see him when he returns, and then hangs up the call. Inhyak starts laughing, saying that he doesn't know what Hale has been doing for the past year, but his confidence is remarkable. Hale then says to Siak Hyan that it has been a long time. Siak Hyan removes his mask and replies that it has been a while, addressing him as young master. He asks to be excused for a moment and notes that Hale's injuries are not light, stating that he will administer some basic first aid, and the rest will be handled by the family's personal doctor. He treats Hale's injuries with magic, and Hale thanks him. As Hale begins to leave, he tells Siak Hyan that he will leave the rest in his hands. Siak Hyan puts his mask back on his face and assures that this won't spread to the outside. Meanwhile, Jihan loosens his tie and grits his teeth, asking a man from the Black Tower why this has happened. The man remarks that Jihan is finally off work and jokes that he has been waiting forever. Jihan asks if he is from the Black Tower, but the man brushes it off and says Jihan was simply unlucky he hadn't expected interference from the Blue Tower. He laughs and notes that Jihan got arrested before he could even act. Jihan shouts, demanding to know if this is really the time to be laughing, and reminds the man that he had boasted he would never fail. He demands to know what the man wants from him now. The man apologizes, saying he laughs a lot by habit. He explained that since the mission failed, he would return Jihan's payment and assured him that he would handle the aftermath properly. He adds that the client is a high-level VP, so there's no need to worry about information leaking, and says that Smith won't survive the morning. Jihan says Smith's life isn't his concern and brings up that Beak Sahyuk gave the AI chip and Berserker to Hale. He demands to know what will be done about that. The man laughs and tells him not to worry, Sahyuk is already brain dead. Jihan asks what that means, and the man explains that Sahyuk apparently attacked Shin Hale alone and is now just a breathing corpse due to the side effects. Frustrated, Jihan says he doesn't care about Sahyuk and wants to know what happened to Hale. The man responds that Hale had injuries but is gone now. When Jihan accuses him of playing word games, the man insists he's simply telling him what he saw. Jihan grits his teeth and realizes Hale defeated Beak Sahyuk even though he had doped with both an AI chip and Berserker. The man laughs and says that's not entirely accurate. Siak Hyan was also there when Sahyuk attacked. Whether he was guarding or monitoring Hale isn't clear, but he had already set up isolation and blocking magic. The man admits he couldn't watch the entire fight, but what he saw was interesting. Jihan asks when Siak Hyan started following Hale, but the man says he only noticed Seok Hyun after Hale parted ways with their VIP client, so he doesn't know exactly. Jihan reflects that Seok Hyun, the head of the shadow unit directly under his father, had been there. He wonders why someone like Seok Hyun would be involved and concludes that if the shadow unit has moved, he must be more cautious. He thinks it's best to refrain from making any moves against Hale for now. Jihan then asks what will happen to Hale's AI chip. The man reassures him that he doesn't need to worry, it was embedded with a self-erasing code and would already have been destroyed, now just floating in the air. The man then asks if Jihan has any more questions. Jihan replies that he doesn't. The man begins to leave, saying he has to deal with Smith next. Meanwhile, Jihan thinks he must ensure that Seok Hyun doesn't find any traces, deciding to remove anything that could serve as evidence. He believes that breaking through his home's security magic will be easy and tells himself he needs to hurry. A few days later, in his dorm, Hale reflects on the news he received from the Blue Tower Master that Smith suddenly clutched his chest and died during transport. He mutters that he kind of expected it, but didn't think it would happen so helplessly. Since there's nothing more to say, he assumes Seok Hyun handled the Baek Sahyuk incident well. Then he sees a message from his father, stating that the negotiations with the Baek family are complete. In exchange for keeping the matter quiet, they secured 43% of the magic stone mining rights. His father notes that this should eliminate any funding issues for their overseas projects, and tells Hale to think carefully if there's anything he wants. Reading the message, Hale smiles and notes that his father sent a lot at once. He then says that, in any case, he's glad everything worked out. Hale says that what remains now is the Olympiad Academy. Then, magic begins to surround him, and he realizes that the 12-hour penalty for resonance has ended. He notes that what he needs to do now is achieve the third circle. Holding the Idrid, he says it's time to move to the page for the test. With that, he finds himself in a different place and wonders what it is. He observes the white space and questions if it is another world from the book. A girl appears behind him and greets him, introducing herself as Beta and stating that she manages the second test page. Hale mutters whether the second test will proceed similarly and thinks the objective is to perfectly refine the elemental mana stone. Beta explains that on the second test page, the successor will be evaluated on how well they can handle the circle freely. She adds that the details of the test will be revealed once it begins, and that upon passing, pages 32 to 81 containing information on the third circle magic will be updated. Hale wonders about the update from pages 32 to 81, thinking he expected only around 10 pages this time. He realizes that this implies the third circle magic is on a different level, likely far beyond the rings of the approval of resonance. He feels both excited and scared. Beta then announces the start of the test. Hale hears the voice of his master from the Idrid and recognizes it. The master states that from now on, 100 magic circles will appear one by one, and all of them must be activated. Once a circle is harmonized with the magic circle, it will naturally activate. Hale sees the circles and wonders about the sudden change. The master adds that the activation time for each magic circle is 3 seconds and warns that failure to activate it in time will require starting over, so he must be careful. Hale asks what it means and wonders if he just needs to memorize it. The master replies that the order of the magic circles changes each time and warns him not to rely on shallow tricks like simple memorization. Hale acknowledges that it wouldn't be that easy. He then starts the test and says it's time to give it a try. Meanwhile, after 8 hours in his room, Hale appears exhausted and says that the maximum he could manage is 10 circles. Still, he notes that the good news is he's slowly getting the hang of it. But relying on tricks alone will likely make it difficult to clear the test. He concludes that he will have to find some hints. Hale then begins reading Idrid. The master tells him that the book he wrote is not limited to Idrid's book, and if Hale feels stuck, he should search for the other books, as they will definitely help with his progress. Hale remarks that if Idrid's book isn't the only one, then a time will surely come when he must find the others, even though he doesn't know their names or locations. Hale then goes outside, muttering that he should get some fresh air, feeling the need for a change of pace. As he enters a store, he runs into Adella. They sit together on a bench, and Hale comments that he seems to see her often and notes that she looks like she's been up all night. Adella shows him a book, saying she was reading an interesting paper titled The Feasibility of Space Transfer Magic. Holding the book, Hale remarks that it seems like something with a fake vibe. Adella acknowledges that and suggests they read it right then. After reading for a while, Hale says it's actually pretty good, but Adella points out that it lacks a proper conclusion. Hale then realizes that the paper is based on books left by Ray Bell Betaneo and analyzed by himself. he suspects it, noting that the structure is somewhat different. But there are clear traces of Betaneo's style. Many parts resemble Betaneo's basic theories. He concludes it's shallow and empty. He then asks Adella who the author is, and she tells him it's someone named Sang Jun. Later, Hale searches for Sang Jun on the internet and finds that he is a magic researcher without any affiliations. His age and gender are unknown, and the only published paper is the one they just read. Hale speculates that perhaps he received harsh criticism and disappeared. While reading the paper again, he wonders if this is the limit of what a normal student like him can find out. He then calls Kim Kangen and says that he is not just a student. Kangen asks what it is, sounding exhausted from searching all night. Hale says he has something that could be mutually beneficial, then asks if Kangen could help him find someone. Meanwhile, Hale is training in magic with Sunshin at the Obelisk Academy training room. Sunshin blocks his wind spears with protective shields, but Hale still manages to land an attack. Sunshin shouts that it's cheating. Hale asks what cheating is about, saying it's just a one-circle spell if there is any problem. As more wind spears approach, Sunshin defends himself completely with shields and says there's nothing fair about this. Hale replies that Sunshin is blocking it well, and Sunshin retorts that he almost died back there. He then suggests switching to hand-to-hand combat. Hale asks if Sunshin really thinks he could beat him in close combat. Sunshin takes the chance and begins to punch, but Hale grabs him and slams him to the ground, surprising everyone watching. Hale remarks that it's not a bad idea, since in hand-to-hand combat, the advantage of variable magic fades, and it becomes a matter of 2-circle power versus 3-circle. Sunshin, unsure whether it's a compliment or an insult, says it feels unfair. He then puts on his jacket and says Hale's magic duels are dirty and his close combat is insane, calling him a dirty fighter. Hale mockingly sticks a bandage on Sunshin's back and tells him to train harder if he doesn't like it. Sunshin then asks what Hale's plan is now, pointing out that his goal must be to win the Olympiad. Hale, surprised, asks how he knew. Sunshin says he knows Hale well and couldn't be fooled. That's why Hale went crazy during the monocrystal variant test. While the average student blocks 27 hits, Hale blocked 74. With his exam scores and training performances, he's been overwhelmingly first in everything lately. Sunshin speculates that Hale must want to compete against the seniors because that's his best option right now. Still, he points out that in his current state, winning the Olympiad would be difficult. This year's favorite is a 5-circle user, and with only 2-circle magic, it's definitely impossible. Hale silently agrees resonance allows him to use 3rd-circle magic. And while that closes the gap a little, facing the top contenders would still require 4th-circle magic. And for that, he knows he needs to find Sang Jun. Afterwards, Hale checks the location on his phone and mutters, wondering where it is. Before that, Kangen called him and apologized for the delay, saying it's the first time it has taken him a whole week to find one person. He gets straight to the point and tells Hale that he has found Sang Jun's current location. Hale, now standing outside, looks around and realizes that it's the old bookstore he always visits. He's surprised and thinks that Sang Jun was right under his nose all along, at a shop near the academy. He reflects on how, after being deemed incompatible with AI magic, Sang Jun has been gathering magical information from grimoires and secondhand books. Hale starts to think that maybe Idrid's codex came from this very place. He enters the store and greets the storekeeper, who is searching through some books. The man recognizes him and says it's been a while. Hale asks if he has been well. The storekeeper replies that he has and adds that he's heard Hale is able to use magic properly now and looks healthier. Hale says it's all thanks to him, and says those books brought him this far, and thanks him again. The storekeeper then asks what brings him there today. Hale says he would like to see Sang Jun, his son. The storekeeper asks why he's asking about Sang Jun and how he knows him. Hale explains that he read a paper Sang Jun wrote and wanted to ask something about it. So he did a bit of investigating and heard that Sang Jun is here. He apologizes if his actions seem intrusive, but says that the matter is important to him and he must meet Sang Jun. The storekeeper agrees to let him meet Sang Jun, but warns that even if he does, he won't get any answers. Hale asks why and what that means. The storekeeper simply tells him to follow and leads him to a room, saying that Sang Jun is inside. He tells Hale to go ahead, it's his room. As Hale enters the room, he notices Sang Jun lying on a deathbed and is shocked by the sight. The storekeeper tells him that this is his son, Sang Jun. Hale asks what happened, and the storekeeper explains that Sang Jun broke the greatest taboo as a mage. When Hale asks what kind of taboo, the storekeeper says it involves circulating mana into his brain. Hale realizes that this is the same thing he did and wonders why Sang Jun would do something like that. The storekeeper explains that it was necessary to establish the theory behind the flawed thesis, which had completely collapsed midway through. Sang Jun had no choice but to circulate mana into his brain. The storekeeper regrets not stopping him, no matter what. Hale wonders to what extent Sang Jun came close to achieving eternal-style magic. The storekeeper says he is sorry, but doesn't think he can satisfy Hale's curiosity, though Sang Jun would have been happy to talk with him. Hale says it is all right and apologizes for bringing it up, thinking he may have complicated the storekeeper's feelings unnecessarily. The storekeeper tells him it is fine and not to worry about it, saying he knows Hale is diligent and genuinely cares about books. The way Hale was always searching through magic tomes reminded him so much of Sang Jun that it made him happy. After that, Hale asks the storekeeper if it would be too much to request a look at the books Sang Jun used for his research. The storekeeper agrees, saying that if the books are just going to rot away in the study, it's better for them to go to someone who needs them. But he makes two requests. First, if Hale reads the books and writes a paper on spatial magic, he wants Hale to include Sang Jun's name, even if just once. Hale assures him that he will. The storekeeper then explains the second request under no circumstances should Hale recklessly send mana to his brain. Hale promises that he will not. The storekeeper then leads him to a bookshelf and explains that these are the books Sang Jun was studying. As for which one he needs, he tells Hale to start looking. Hale notices a specific book and feels something about it. The book falls to the ground, and he senses that it somehow resembles the Book of Idrid. Holding it, he asks the storekeeper about it. The storekeeper tells him it is a book Sang Jun always carried around as if it were very important. He encourages Hale to read it, saying that whatever he is curious about is probably in there. Hale acknowledges and opens the book, wondering that, as expected, the handwriting is terrible. It is written by his master. He then asks if he could take the book to read. The storekeeper tells him to just take it and says that if there are any other books he needs, he is free to take them as well. Hale then asks the storekeeper if there are any other books written in a similar style. The storekeeper replies that he doesn't really know. Hale follows up by asking if he has ever seen a luxurious red hardcover book. The storekeeper says he doesn't remember seeing such a book and explains that small bookstores like theirs rarely receive such editions. Hale then wonders how Sang Jun could have obtained that book. He thanks the shopkeeper and begins to question how the Book of Idrid ended up in his bag. At night, keeping the book in front of him, he mutters that he searched Sang Jun's study but found only one book similar to the Book of Idrid. Grabbing the book, he notes that it's still better than finding nothing. Suddenly, both books start glowing. Hale wonders what's happening as both books begin to emit light at the same time. Then, a pulling force comes from the new book, and his master's voice is heard, addressing the rightful successor of the Book of Idrid and saying that he leaves this book, the Book of Mimir. Hale mutters that it's his master's voice and realizes he is being pulled into the book again. The master encourages him to enjoy the blessings of knowledge to his heart's content. Meanwhile, Hale finds himself in a strange place. As he opens his eyes, he wonders where he is. Then, a girl touches him from behind and welcomes him to the Book of Mimir. Hale asks who she is. She replies that she is Mimir, the administrator of this place, Mimir's Well, and greets him as the successor. Hale then asks about Mimir's Well. She explains that it is the name of this library, a space prepared by Ray Bell for future successors, a library exclusively for Betaneo successors. Hale remarks that it seems too small to be called a library. Mimir responds that it is because his achievements are still low, and in Mimir's Well, the scale of the space changes depending on the successor's level. Judging by its current size, she assumes he has not passed even the second trial yet. Hale confirms that she is right. She then asks if they can speak casually, saying that since they will be seeing each other often, it feels strange to remain formal, and suggests they make things more comfortable. Hale smiles and agrees. She comments that he is quite talented, noting that he is already in the second circle and has found her quickly. Hale replies that he doesn't really see why finding her early is a good thing. Mimir explains that it means he will be able to progress smoothly up to the fifth circle without any issues. Hale becomes troubled upon hearing about the fifth circle and asks how that is possible. Mimir hands him the Mimir book and tells him to read it, assuring that he will understand then. As he opens the book, he realizes that it contains a detailed theory of resonance. Mimir explains that this place is filled with information that could not fit into the Idrid book, just like the one he is currently reading. Hale asks why all this was not included in the Idrid book. She replies that it is a great question and explains that due to the overload from the pages of the trials and the excessive content required for verifying successors, only essential information was included in Idrid. That is why the supplemental Mimir's Well was created. Hale then asks if his master recorded more detailed content here in Mimir's Well. She confirms it, explaining that Idrid is like a summarized guide, and this place can be considered a textbook or a reference book. Hale acknowledges this and asks if all the books here are packed with such dense information, and whether the number of books will increase as his achievements grow. She confirms again. She then asks if he now understands how to get the first circle. He replies confidently that with this, he can easily pass the second trial. Hale, while lying down and huffing as he reaches the 79 circle, reflects on his progress in synchronizing the 100 magic circles for the second trial. He recalls that at first, it took him 8 hours to complete just 10. But ever since encountering Mimir's Well, he has managed to reach 79 in one go. He acknowledges that everything up to this point has been pure hardship. At this rate, he feels confident that he can clear all 100 circles by tonight at the earliest or by tomorrow at the latest. He thinks that obtaining Mimir Well before the Olympiad was truly a stroke of luck. Afterwards, Hale, in the Shin estate, wonders why his father is calling him. He considers whether it could be a reward for the Beek Sahyuk incident, as he had planned to spend the entire day in Mimir's Well after class, so the timing feels inconvenient, but he acknowledges that the call is still significant. He soon arrives at his father's study. Shin Inhyak tells him to come in and have a seat, then gets straight to the point. Unlike the last case, Inhyak says Hale's contribution this time wasn't 100%, but it's undeniable that his efforts made up more than half. Combining this with the previous incident, his total share of the Manastone mining rights comes to 26%. Since he brought great profit to the family, Inhyak says he deserves an appropriate reward, and asks if there's something he wants. Hale replies that he wants the ancient relic stored in the deepest part of the family's vault. Inhyak questions whether Hale truly believes in some fantasy about hidden secrets in ancient relics, calling them mere antiques. But Hale explains that he doesn't think of them that way. He doesn't care about the legends. He believes that even myths hold some truth. Inhyak, though still viewing it as a youthful belief in far-fetched stories, respects Hale's choice. However, he states that Hale can only take one item. He asks which ancient relic Hale wants. Hale answers that the item he wants is the ancient relic resting in the family's treasure vault Ray Bel Betaneo's robe. In the treasure of the mage divine family, Inhyak gives the relic box to Hale, saying he hopes Hale won't regret the choice. He remarks that believing in such an absurd story shows how young Hale still is. He advises Hale to devote himself to training so that he won't regret it, and adds that if Hale wants to return it, he can. Hale expresses his gratitude and assures him that it is fine. In the car, on the way to his dorm, Hale thinks that most of the ancient relics the family possesses are genuine. He believes that if the robe of Ray Bel Bateneu truly belongs to his master, then even a 30% share of the Monastone mining rights is nothing in comparison. However, he also wonders whether it is truly his master's robe and considers the possibility that it might be fake. As he opens the box, he finds a pure mana fiber and wonders if it is really mana fiber. Mana fiber is a high-level technique where mana stones are finely spun into thread through crafting technology, and there are fewer than 30 artisans worldwide capable of handling it. He realizes that this robe is not something that just partially uses mana fiber. The entire robe is made of it. He is surprised, questioning how such advanced technology could have existed in that era. Compared to this, recently produced mana fiber artifacts don't even come close. He has never seen anything like it. While in bed, he notices a signature on the fiber in terrible handwriting and identifies it as his master's. As he observes the structure, he wonders what is going on. He notes that the structure of the inner and outer layers is reversed. Another reason mana fiber is difficult to handle is that the inner and outer layers must be constructed differently. The inner layer is designed to enhance mana conduction and efficiency, while the outer layer is designed to block mana conduction to reduce damage. He observes that this robe's structure is the exact opposite. The outer layer enhances mana efficiency and takes more damage, while the inner layer blocks mana, reducing the wearer's mana output. Hale concludes that his master would not make such a mistake and realizes that it means the robe is meant to be worn inside out. Placing the fiber in front of him, he sees that even when reversed, the structure of the outer and inner sides remains the same. He begins to wonder if it was intentionally designed this way, but he is unsure of its purpose. He now understands why his father left it to rot in the storage room. Meanwhile, Hale goes into Mimir's well and shows the robe to Mimir. She recognizes it as Ray Bell's robe and is surprised, remarking that he has already found it and calling his luck insane. Hale mentions that the robe seems a bit strange. She observes the robe and then asks if he is still at the second circle, saying it is natural he wouldn't know yet. Hale tells her not to keep pondering it alone and asks how to use it. Mimir apologizes and says she can't explain anything about the robe. Hale reacts with surprise and asks why. She returns the robe to him and explains that the Badeneo style of magic includes a very special spell called True Magic. Unlike the magic Hale currently uses, this one is real, true magic. Hale, shocked, asks if the magic he has been using so far is not real. She confirms that, unfortunately, that is the correct way to put it. Regarding true magic, she says she cannot disclose anything until he reaches a certain level. Hale asks if it is some kind of restriction. She confirms that it is and explains that the robe is an artifact that exists to support true magic. He then asks what level he must reach to get an explanation about the robe. She replies that it is the 5th circle he must master the 5th circle and enter the page of the 5th trial. She adds that Badeneo's style of magic truly begins with the mastery of the 5th circle. Later, Hale completes 100 circles and finishes his second trial test. His master congratulates him on passing and says that completing the second test must have been quite difficult, acknowledging that he has done well. The master then states that it is time to teach him how to weave the third ring, the third stage of the Badeneo style technique, called the third infinity circle, interference. Meanwhile, sitting in his room wearing the robe, Hale closes the book and notes that he has now mastered the second test. He thinks it is time to weave the ring of interference and reflects that if it were not for the robe and Mimir's book, completing the second test would have taken much longer. The night before, in Mimir's well, when Mimir tells him that the robe can only be used once he has become a master of the 5th circle and passed the pages of the 5th test, Hale responds that he has no choice and decides to put it away in storage until then. Mimir reacts by asking what he is saying and if he would waste something so precious in storage. When Hale asks what he would even use it for, mentioning that the inner and outer layers of the mana fabric are reversed and that it is not usable anywhere, she snatches the robe and explains that it prevents mana from leaking out and traps it inside. She says this allows him to reach a state of mana saturation. When mana is saturated, the infinity circle spins faster than usual, which increases the mana flowing through the brain. In other words, the brain is influenced by the excess mana, which speeds up recovery from fatigue. The same applies to the physical fatigue accumulated in the body. Hale responds that he gets it and asks if wearing the robe means he can reduce the amount of sleep he needs. Mimir replies by asking what he means and states that wearing the robe means he does not need sleep at all. He is surprised and asks if that means not even a little sleep. She confirms that it is right, explaining that if he wears it for about 5 hours a day, he will actually maintain peak condition. She adds that this is just a bonus effect of the robe, so it should be fine to tell the successor about it, because this is not the robe's true power. Hale says he really wants to become a master of the 5th circle as soon as possible. Mimir then asks if he knows this only works for the successor. She explains that for others, it is poisonous. Hale replies that he knows that well and thinks that with such a broken item, the upcoming test might actually become easier. 2 days later, Hale is wearing the robe and practicing. While reading the book, he wonders why something still feels missing despite several attempts. He feels like he is close to grasping interference. He recalls that the 3rd circle of Badeneo magic possesses the power to interfere with another's mana. To interfere with someone else's mana, it is necessary to synchronize with that mana 100%. He wonders if this is the explanation of the ring of interference being able to meddle in someone else's magic. He smiles and says it sounds fun. He honestly did not expect it at all and never thought the second test was merely a stepping stone to weave the ring of interference. To weave the 3rd ring, he must resonate the ring of resonance and synchronize with the surrounding mana. If he continues the resonance like that, the 3rd ring will be formed. Hale then says that this time he will definitely succeed. He begins the process, synchronizing all the abundant mana in the air, while the mana in his body is already saturated with the feeling of building a new home. He senses that it has found a dwelling within him and is being absorbed. He hears the voice of the mana saying it feels so warm, it does not want to leave. While doing so, Hale thinks that if he has come this far, he is already halfway there. He just needs to maintain resonance like this. He feels the heat. He knows that if even a 1% difference in the mana amplification rate occurs, the mana will not settle in his body. By managing that 1% amplification rate, he allows the mana to settle in his body. Gradually, he reduces the amplification rate by 0.01%, with the mana forming the circle quietly, without anyone noticing. Then, in the morning, he finishes the process, huffing. He flexes the first circle deliberation, the second circle resonance, and now, the third circle is the infinity circle, or interference. Hale says he needs to get stronger as quickly as possible to reach the level of a 5th circle master. Meanwhile, during the battle survival exam, he is lying on the branch of a tree. The battle survival exam is a large-scale test conducted on vast training grounds in the mountainous regions of Gangwon province. The test duration is 32 hours. Every student acquires a special artifact, a simple tester, and the goal is to survive for as long as possible within an increasingly shrinking area over the 32 hours. Noticing the blue status on his watch, Hale says it's time to move. Another rule is that if there is a difference in this test, one must survive not only the monster attacks, but also deal with other students as well. Of course, survival must be achieved while also earning points. Then, suddenly, a student throws fireballs at Hale. Hale quickly dodges and lands on the ground. The attacker says he dodged well but claims to have already caught the flow. Hale begins to punch him, but the student forms a 2-circle barrier and mocks him, asking what he thinks he can do with just a fist. Hale then uses the interference circle and shatters the barrier with his punch. The student, falling to the ground from Hale's strike, wonders in disbelief if his barrier was shattered by something like an earth sphere. Hale asks if he feels proud of ambushing him. Then, looking at his own fist, Hale wonders if this is the power of interference, weakening the core of a 2-circle magic barrier and striking it with a 1-circle earth sphere. An announcement follows: student Kang Jihak eliminated. Hale walks away, saying that since the opponent let his guard down, it naturally worked out perfectly. He checks his stats and sees he has gained 100 points. While walking, Hale mutters that he thinks he's getting the hang of interference. At this pace, he feels interference might soon work not just on 2-circle magic, but on 3-circle magic as well. Then, he notices something unusual behind him. Suddenly, a huge fire erupts, and a pack of blood-clawed wolves comes toward him, surrounding him. He wonders if he's been surrounded and assumes they must have come after hearing the sounds of battle earlier. He reflects that, for regular students, dealing with consecutive battles like this would be overwhelming. Then he remarks that while others might have cried in this situation, for someone like him, who needs to dominate and secure first place overwhelmingly, this is actually a welcome development. As he finishes speaking, the wolf leaps toward him. Hale then uses the interference magic and begins to charge at the wolves. Meanwhile, in the control room, as the students' activities are being monitored, a lady instructor mentions several names, including Adella Starrett and Sunchen, noting that these students are truly remarkable. Another instructor comments that if things continue like this until the end, they will easily make it into the top 10. A third instructor questions whether it might be too tough to make it to the end. The lady instructor then turns to instructor Changsu, pointing out that it seems there's no one left to doubt Shin Hale's skills now. Changsu, silently observing the screens, agrees. A red-haired instructor suggests that Hale certainly doesn't seem like someone who should be dismissed as incompetent. He's been overwhelmingly in first place in all previous training sessions, and even now, he's leading by a wide margin. What surprises them even more is how Hale knew the habits of the Bloodclaw wolf and intentionally refrained from killing it until it called its pack an incredible move. When a Bloodclaw wolf calls its pack, others rush in from as far as 5 kilometers away, and Hale used that habit to rack up kill points. The instructors start to feel that, if this continues, they might even hope for an Olympiad victory. Meanwhile, after defeating the wolves, Hale huffs and remarks that he must have scored around 60 points. But then, suddenly, he feels something strange. He wonders if it's an earthquake, but immediately rules it out, realizing that the ground itself is moving. He then sees a massive body emerge, resembling an elephant, with emeralds on its back and emerald turtle. Hale remarks in disbelief, questioning why such a rare monster would appear here, of all places. Hale wonders to himself that it's his first time seeing the emerald turtle in person, then steeling himself, thinks it's time to face it head-on. Meanwhile, in the control room, a blonde instructor comments that Hale encountering the emerald turtle, originally designed to be a threat to escape from, is meant to encourage broader tactical decisions, such as collaboration among students. It's a rare monster deliberately placed in the main training field to expand the range of available options. The lady instructor responds that no matter how much of a genius Shin Hale may be, the emerald turtle is not something that can be handled alone. The monster is a reptilian, turtle-necked creature, classified as a Class 4 of Grade C, and is known for its immense defensive capabilities. It is considered the natural enemy of magicians. Meanwhile, the monster charges at Hale, but he manages to dodge the attack by retreating from his position. He thinks that if he can capture this monster, he will gain a massive number of skill points. He quickly uses his barrier to block the next strike and positions himself on a platform, but the Emerald Turtle's immense force shatters the barrier. In the control room, the lady instructor observes that while avoiding attacks with barriers is a good starting point, the barrier itself isn't strong enough. She remarks that the Emerald Turtle isn't an easy opponent, not even for a sixth circle magician. Back in the field, Hale unleashes his volcano flame technique at the turtle and wonders if it will be effective, only to see the creature emerge unharmed. Frustrated, he starts running and admits that this is far more difficult than expected. Even a fifth circle user would struggle to defeat it alone. He suddenly realizes something and notes that the monster has mana within its body. That thought sparks an idea, and he decides he has something to test. Enhancing his leg strength, he quickly retreats as the turtle slams into a tree with a massive headbutt. Hale notes that this is a powerful force strong enough to fell a large tree in one hit. If he gets struck even once, he won't walk away with a single unbroken bone. He understands that simply running away won't win the fight. He must confront the creature again. Standing once more before the turtle, he reforms his barrier to block its charge. But the moment it strikes, he realizes the immense power behind it. His barrier begins to crack, and he admits he underestimated the monster. He struggles to endure the pressure, thinking that in such direct confrontation, he can't move until he regains his leg strength. At the critical moment, he channels wind attribute magic and unleashes a powerful wind-based attack on its joints. Hale recalls reading in a picture book during childhood that the Emerald Turtle's double charge puts immense pressure on its joints. After such an attack, the monster can't move until its joints recover. Recognizing the perfect moment, he seizes the opportunity, saying this is his chance, and casts Ice Spear at the turtle. In the control room, everyone watches in surprise. Hale activates the interference circle and finally brings down the Emerald Turtle. Huffing, he says he won and earns 1,000 points. Meanwhile, in Shin State, Inhyak watches Hale's performance and notes that although the Emerald Turtle is weak to ice, he can't understand how Hale managed it with only 3 circles. He asks Siak Hyan if he knew anything, but Siak Hyan apologizes, saying he doesn't either. He adds that even so, it's only natural there will be resistance. Seeing Hale slicing the turtle to secure meat, Siak Hyan remarks that food sources are crucial in a survival test and praises Hale's judgment. Inhyak replies that he didn't raise him to be weak. Siak Hyan then asks why Hale acts so boldly. He points out that considering Jihan and Sia's monitoring, such behavior seems risky. Inhyak explains that all of Hale's actions are calculated. In the past, when his magic was restricted, Hale was excluded from the family's internal competition, which left his status in a poor state. But things have changed. Somehow, he has gained significant power and made rapid progress in magic. During the 2 months leading up to the Olympiad, Hale requested protection not just to shield himself from his siblings' harassment, but to stand out as much as possible. His goal is to attract public attention and elevate his status within the family. He aims to build power quickly, and if he asked for 2 months of protection, it means he must be confident that Jihan and Sia's interference won't be a problem anymore. On the first day of survival training, no confrontations are allowed between 11 p.m. and 1 a.m. while eating. Hale mutters that he knows this rule is for safety, but thinks that if the academy makes things easier for students like this, different from the original rules, the students' skills won't improve much. He reflects that in some countries, schools train outdoors with stricter rules than the academy follows, and believes this needs to change. He notes that, at least this time, they are allowed to bring magic tools, so it is good that he can recover from fatigue with the master's robe. He concludes that this is it. After eating, he says that he ate very well. Then he notices something behind him and finds Sunshin and Adella. Hale asks them how they both came out of the forest together. Adella replies that they were fighting until a little past 11 am. Sunshin clarifies that they were not quarreling, he was beaten. Hale remarks that if the fight had stopped at 11 am, they must have crawled toward the delicious smell. Sunshin, seeing the meat, admits that the smell is killer and asks when Hale will give them some. Hale says he is going to throw it anyway, so maybe they should eat it too. They thank him for the meat and start eating, saying it is really delicious. Adella then observes that the meat seems to be from a honey bear, a bear-type monster that lives in the forest and tastes delicious when roasted. Hale denies this. She insists that only 2 monsters in this training field are edible as meat: the honey bear and the emerald turtle. Other monsters are either toxic or tasteless, so they can't be eaten. She then asks if it is possible that Hale hunted an emerald turtle. Hale confirms that he did during the day in the west. Sunshin, surprised, says he has already seen emerald turtles online and asks how Hale managed to hunt them. Adella comments that she has never heard of a magician with less than 5 circles hunting an emerald turtle. Hale then shows his magic and says it is a burning crash. Adella, seeing the 3 magic circles, wonders aloud if it is transformation magic 6 circles. Hale mutters that with the master's magic, there are still 3 circles, but he has no choice but to keep the secret. Sunshin asks how Hale won if he targeted the emerald turtle's head. Hale answers that he pierced it from above the shell. Sunshin expresses disbelief, asking if that even makes sense. Hale says that is what happened, and that it is being broadcast by a drone belonging to the Academy, so they can watch the footage after it is over. He adds that he thinks he will see it first anyway. Hale then says they will fight tomorrow, fairly and squarely. Adella responds that it sounds great and wishes him good luck, saying she also has something to show him. It is now the 2nd day of the survival test. In the control room, an instructor announces that 2 hours remain. The survival circle has shrunk, and now only 4 people remain who will stand atop this survival battle. Meanwhile, as Hale casually walks, he notices something unusual behind him. He quickly forms a wind spear. Then, a student appears and says that they have returned to the supernova phase. The student leaps up and rushes toward Hale to punch. Hale manages to dodge the punch and wonders how fast the student is. The student tries to kick him again, and Hale barely manages to dodge it once more. Hale realizes that the wind cutter is just a smokescreen, and the real threat is close combat, a roundhouse kick that comes flying in, missing him by just a hair's breadth. The man tells Hale that he is unlucky to have encountered him here. He is Sanwook, a close-range magician. Hale forms a fist and replies that he actually feels lucky. He thinks to himself that, as expected of Sanwook, body enhancement magic truly excels. Among the second-year students, Sanwook is one of the top 2 in martial arts and an expert in body enhancement magic. He is not someone on whom interference magic can be casually tested. In response, Hale activates body enhancement. Seeing this, Sanwook comments that a fair and direct confrontation is cool. Meanwhile, in the Obelisk control room, the lady instructor observes that Hale and Sanwook have chosen to battle using enhancement magic. Another instructor remarks that the match will obviously favor Sanwook, whose combat ability among second years is undoubtedly the best, and who even has the experience of winning the National Junior Enhancement Magic Competition. Instructor Changsu adds that, considering yesterday's Emerald Turtle match, Hale's abilities are still beyond measurement. While fighting, Hale uses his demonic eyes to dodge Sanwook's punch and identifies his mana flow. The mana, previously concentrated in Sanwook's fist, has now shifted to his knee, indicating an upcoming kick. Hale forms a shield, which cracks under the weight of the kick, and notes how heavy the strikes are. He considers using a barrier to push Sanwook back, but Sanwook completely destroys it. Hale reflects that he has never seen magic like this before. Hale then forms his infinity magic circle. Seeing this, Sanwook wonders if the rumor about the return of the genius magician is true. It no longer seems like just a rumor. He acknowledges that the situation is getting interesting but declares that, out of pride, he does not want to lose in close-range combat. Hale begins to punch, thinking this is his chance, but Sanwook blocks the punch, guarding with his arm. Sanwook tries to kick, but Hale dodges and thinks that Sanwook reacted to the move. His combat sense is decent, but still clumsy. Hale remarks that if he had disguised a physical attack as a flame attack and launched it, then even if Sanwook had used defense magic, his arms would not have been spared from serious damage. As he follows through, Sanwook's arm gets burned. Sanwook thinks to himself that Hale is fast. Hale launches another punch, but Sanwook guards with his arm again. Hale mocks him, saying he is going to defend like that again, then kicks toward his ribs, pointing out that his armpit is wide open. Sanwook realizes that Hale's fist enhancement magic was a feint, and that the real attack was a kick. He wonders when Hale managed to enhance his legs with magic, and feels like his ribs are broken. Still, he tells himself that he is a fighter, and that this level of pain can be endured through sheer willpower. Attack is the destiny of a fighter. Hale tells Sanwook that if he relies too much on his strength, his body will eventually break down. Sanwook attempts to strike back, but Hale dodges, which causes him to lose his balance. Hale asks if he is overeating a little, then hits him with an elbow and throws him away. In that brief moment, Sanwook concentrates all his mana into his jaw to minimize the impact. Hale reflects that Sanwook's combat sense is indeed incredible. Not only his offensive power, but his defensive skills are top tier as well. He gains 1,000 points and acknowledges that Sanwook is definitely not an easy opponent. Checking the stats, Hale sees that only 3 survivors remain. But right then, the number drops to 2. Then, in the evening, Adella appears and greets him, commenting that it is a fine night. Sia and Jihan are watching Hale's battle. Sia says there is no way someone like him ends up as the final survivor in their nationally broadcast academia test. She shouts that they cannot lay a hand on him and claims he is obviously getting more out of control. She sits down and worries that if this continues, Hale will once again become a successor candidate. She insists that this is just unforgivable and absolutely not acceptable, then asks her brother to agree with her. Jihan does not respond. She asks him again to say something and brings up that Hale took down the Emerald Turtle on his own. She questions how he managed to defeat that Emerald Turtle, pointing out that it is a live broadcasted test. So now it is not just the internet father must have seen it too, and so has the rest of their family. Jihan tells Sia to calm down a bit. She shouts that she cannot possibly stay calm in this situation. He glances at her and says he will not repeat himself. She apologizes and, scared, says she will stay quiet and begs him not to punish her. Jihan smiles, pats her, and says he would not punish her, they are siblings, after all. She then sits quietly on the floor and expresses her gratitude. Jihan comments that Hale has always been sly, snatching up all the good opportunities. He acknowledges that they are siblings, but if Hale keeps stirring things up like this, he cannot just leave him alone. Meanwhile, Adella uses her moonlight bullet technique and states that this time she will not be caught off guard, having observed Hale's battles dozens, even hundreds of times. She thinks that while in the previous match he turned the sun to his side, tonight's fight will be different. As she forms the magic circle with her fingers, she says she will not give him a chance to counterattack, and hurls the attack toward him. Hale struggles to dodge, but a barrage of moonlight bullets injures his arm. He wonders why the number of shots is different from the midterm evaluation, and dodging all of them is impossible. Adella, while forming another magic circle, says that a magic user focused on control and techniques is weak against simple, long-range barrages. She launches another wave, declaring it as his weakness and claiming she will surpass his skill, effort, everything, even be his cause of death, as a huge explosion forms from her attacks. On the other hand, Hale blocks the attacks with a shield and responds that whether it's a weakness or not, this is just brute forcing with a magic circle. He questions what exactly she analyzed. She laughs and thinks that spamming resources is not something just anyone can do, and that such skill is expected from the heir of the renowned Shin family. Hale then asks Adella when she reached the 4th mage level, and at the same time, he secretly uses the ice needle. Adella responds that, as expected, he notices right away. Meanwhile, Hale conceals his attack through the smoke, allowing the ice needle to approach Adella from behind. Adella replies that she achieved the 4th circle about 4 days ago, and adds that it is not all. She then closes her eyes and states that she will no longer fall for such obvious tricks, successfully dodging Hale's ice needle. Hale realizes that she has used the heart's eye technique. He says that not only has she reached the 4th circle, but she has also mastered heart's eye, and questions whether that is going too far. He recalls that heart's eye is a secret magic technique owned by the prestigious Starrett family, from Adella's maternal lineage in France. It is a detection-type mystic eye, similar to the ruby eye of King Kangan, the Blue Tower Master. The current Adella combines the Shin family's power range and versatility with the Starrett family's detection ability, making her overwhelmingly formidable. He mutters that she is like a monster in human form, and declares that he will now fight with energy, with everything he has. Adella replies that she is not stupid enough to hold back her strength against him. She asks when he plans to use the magic he used to take down the Emerald Turtle. As Hale notices her incoming bullet attacks, he says that he was about to show it now. He then activates a mystic eye technique, uses interference magic, and blocks each bullet with fire magic. Adella observes that the moonlight bullets curve off course and miss just before hitting, and wonders what in the world he did. Hale responds by asking her, from her perspective, what she thinks he did, and if she can see it with that heart's eye of hers. Meanwhile, in the Mystic Council mansion, Adella's father, Wei Sengqiao, troubled, says to Inhyak, Hale's father, that he cannot understand what kind of magic could possibly bend the trajectory of spells in such an impossible way. Inhyak sits calmly, watching the battle between Hale and Adella, and replies that he does not really know either. Sengqiao asks if Hale did not tell him anything, and Inhyak says he has not heard anything. Sengqiao finds it unexpected for Hale to hide something from his own father. Inhyak responds that over the past year, Hale has grown quite bold, and these days, he keeps more secrets from him than he shares. Sangcheol remarks that Hale has really changed a lot during that year away from home, and says it is true that a man has to leave home to grow. He admits that during the midterm evaluation, he thought Hale just got lucky. He laughs and tells Inhyak he feels a little bad saying this in front of him, but he had assumed that kid, Hale, would just shine for a moment and then fade away. Inhyak, narrowing his eyes, agrees, saying Hale is an AI-incompatible person after all. Sangcheol continues that even when Hale won against their Adella, it was not really because of skill but due to technique and strategy. Eventually, people will begin analyzing Hale's information, and once that happens, his limitations will be exposed, and he will soon fall. Inhyak agrees, especially since Adella excels in analysis. Sangcheol confirms that his daughter's analytical skills are top-notch, but admits he underestimated Hale. He tells Inhyak he is always grateful to Hale. When Adella lost sight of her goal for the first time, there was nothing reflected in her eyes, but now her eyes shine brighter than ever. He says he is really thankful that Hale came back. Jisoo has also started regaining her motivation. Inhyak agrees and says that it is true, and it is something to be thankful for. Meanwhile, an announcement declares that the battle of survival is over and instructs the participants to end combat immediately. Hale and Adella stop fighting. Hale comments that it's a shame if he had just a little more time, he would have won. Adella disagrees, insisting that no matter how it looked, she was in a more favorable position. Instructor Changsu then tells them that's enough and instructs both of them to come down and return. The next day, Adella insists that she won the match the previous day. Hale tells her to forget it and claims that, as always, he was the one winning. As they argue, Suncheon tells them to go back to their rooms if they are going to keep this up, because fighting in his room is really troublesome. They both shout at him, calling him the 26th eliminated. Suncheon replies that it's his room and that he just wanted to watch the recorded battle's survival with them. He adds that he had even prepared pizza, fries, and a drink for them. They begin watching the recording from the beginning, which is 14 hours long. 14 hours later, Suncheon has fallen asleep, clearly exhausted. Adella places a blanket over him and says it was just so fun watching 14 hours of analysis footage. Hale admits that he honestly thought she would have given up and run away halfway through. Seeing Suncheon, Adella tells Hale that he has a really good friend. Hale replies that they're almost too good a great friend. Adella then apologizes to Hale. He asks what's with her all of a sudden. She confesses that for a whole year, she pretended not to know. She wanted to keep her distance and hold on without understanding. But now she feels like that choice was wrong, so she's sorry. Hale tells her that she doesn't need to be sorry. He was the one who rejected the signal she sent. He was the one who chose to keep his distance. Pointing at Suncheon, he adds that at first, he kept his distance from that guy, too. Suncheon quickly wakes up and asks if that's true. Hale continues, saying that now he's not the same person he was a year ago. He has gained new power and also has reliable comrades. He closes his fist and says there is something he wants to show them all. He then forms a moonlight bullet with magic. Seeing this, both Adella and Suncheon are stunned, saying that this is impossible. Hale says that's right, this is his magic. Suncheon, surprised, asks if that means Hale's alteration magic can even target an opponent's magic formula. Hale confirms it and adds that he also has mystic eyes that allow him to see magic formulas. Adella, stunned, realizes that it was with those mystic eyes he saw her secret magic. Hale nods and explains that normally, secret magic isn't taught outside of the family. It's something he analyzed and implanted on his own. He had to observe it up close multiple times for it to work. She then asks about how he filled the emerald turtle shell. Hale says that was also done using alteration magic. He interfered with the shell, which was covered in and weakened its durability, clarifying that the shell was practically made of magic. Suncheon comments that, as expected, Hale is a monster. Hale adds that he probably doesn't need to explain how he bent the trajectory of Adella's moonlight bullet again. Adella deduces that if the condition for using interference magic is to fully understand the opponent's magic, then it wasn't that he didn't use interference magic in the beginning, it was that he couldn't. Hale confirms she's right and adds that since she focused solely on using Moonlight Bullet in the match, he was able to analyze the mana. Of course, if she had used other spells alongside it, he would have struggled. Adella admits that not realizing that using only Moonlight Bullet would be her fatal mistake. She then asks if that magic has any other weaknesses. Hale says that the mana analysis calculations are quite tricky, so he can only interfere with spells that come right up to his face. In real combat, there's not enough time for full calculations, so all he can do is slightly alter the trajectory. She asks about turning the opponent's spell 180 degrees and sending it back. Hale says that, as expected, there's not enough time for that, so it's impossible. Adella acknowledges that if reflections were possible, the spell's efficiency would be incredible. Sunshine then suddenly interrupts, grabs Hale angrily, and asks why he's chattering away and openly revealing such an overpowered spell. Hale and Adella both ask him if he really doesn't get it. Confused, Sunshine says he truly doesn't understand. Hale finally says he's taking them to the Olympiad and asks for their help. Sunshine says that Adella being part of the team makes sense, but he himself doesn't have the skills to compete in such a big tournament. He explains that while competing against second years is one thing, there are 7 classes of third years, so getting an academy spot for him would be tough. Hale tells him not to worry and assures him that no matter what, he will make sure Sunshine participates. Adella points out that although there are many restrictions, interference magic will be like a joker card. She mentions that if it's a match where this magic can be used like a tiebreaker match where teams protect their magic stones while bombarding the opponent's magic stone with cannons, or a siege battle where the objective is to attack the enemy's base and steal their flag, then it will be an overwhelmingly powerful asset. Hale agrees, saying that in tiebreakers and siege battles, interference magic is practically cheat code level. Adella, growing more curious, asks if he has another hidden card, especially if that's the case. Hale smiles and says, of course. In his room, wearing the robe and holding Mimir, Hale asks if he should go in and then enters Mimir's well. Mimir remarks that he is later than expected and jokingly asks if he didn't get first place. Hale responds that he did get first place, explaining that the points from the Emerald Turtle match were decisive. He then asks if she remembers when he mentioned he had to win a gold medal in a certain competition. Mimir replies that she remembers and asks if it was the Olympiad. Hale confirms it and says he has talked to his friends about it and the interference. She expresses surprise and reminds him that he once said it would be better to master interference first before telling them, noting that he told them pretty quickly. Hale answers that he told them at the right time. She then asks if he has mastered interference. He flexes the interference magic and confirms that he has. She praises him, calling him amazing. Hale then says he wants her to find him some books on the realm of destruction. Later, Kim Kengan speaks to Hale on a video call, saying he watched his test video and was amazed, admitting he had never expected Hale to defeat an Emerald Turtle alone. Hale smiles and replies that it was just luck. Kengan continues, expressing surprise that Hale fought on equal footing with Adella, who has reached the 4th circle, and asks how he broke through the Emerald Turtle's shell. He also mentions noticing how Adella's moonlight bullet veered off its trajectory, saying that at first he thought it was due to a mana distortion field, but realizes it was not even that. Hale then replies that he sincerely apologizes but cannot share details about his magic. Kengan admits that he got too excited again and apologizes, acknowledging that a mage has the right to keep their secrets. He then says that Hale's magic is truly fascinating and declares that he will figure it out himself. Changing the subject, he mentions contacting Hale regarding the elemental mana stone he had requested before. Hale asks whether it is good news or bad news. Kengan responds that it is good news and says that as of this moment, everything is ready, so now it is time to get serious. Hale, surprised, asks if that is really true and suggests that everyone might be overexerting themselves, saying they can take it easy. Kengan replies that no, everyone there is a craftsman to the core, unable to resist a new mana stone. Hale mutters that, as expected, they must be grinding themselves to the bone. Kengan says there is no need to worry about the artifact and tells him to see him next time. Hale then stops him and says he has a request. Kengan guesses that it is about compensation for the Smith incident. Hale says that would depend on how the Tower Master interprets it. Kengan responds that it is interesting and wonders what kind of proposal Hale will make this time, then asks to hear it. Hale says that for this year's Olympiad, he would like the artifact craftsmen from the Blue Magic Tower to be dispatched as the national team's engineers. Hale tells all this to Mimir, who is surprised and asks if he is really going to fight against a 5th circle user. Hale replies that yes, that is the condition set by the Blue Tower Master. He wonders if he is taking it too lightly because when he asked Kengan about dispatching craftsmen for the Olympiad, Kengan initially refused. Hale mutters that, as expected, it was not a reasonable request. Kengan had said it was what he would have liked to say, but if Hale wins a one-on-one match against a 5th circle user, then the discussion changes. He explains that among the foreign students participating in this year's Olympiad, there are 2 5th circle magicians, and he is not doubting Hale's ability, but moving their craftsmen requires an astronomical amount of money. It is hard to take on such a big commitment just for honor, so he tells Hale to show solid proof that he can win the gold medal in the Olympiad. Mimir then asks what Hale's plan is, saying that no matter how she thinks about it, as the current successor of the culprit, defeating a 5th circle mage is impossible. Hale says that for now, he has secured a grace period of about 10 days. Mimir asks if he is planning to master a countermeasure and settle the match within that time. She notes that if there is a countermeasure, then it is possible somehow, but mastering it within 10 days won't be easy. She asks if he really needs to go this far just to get the blue magic tower to send engineers. Hale replies that, of course, he does, otherwise, it is meaningless. The only one in their country that can address the customized Olympiad-approved artifacts is the blue magic tower. Mimir says it must be an incredible place and explains that the artifacts made by regular craftsmen and those made by the blue magic tower's craftsmen have at least a 10% difference in performance. Moreover, the only one currently capable of adjusting the elemental monolite artifact is the blue magic tower. So, the difference in artifact performance determines the win rate in the tournament. Hale says they absolutely have to bring them in. Mimir then asks when they will get to the 3rd trial page. Hale, holding many books, says he is planning to read through all the books that she prepared for him before going in. She says that is a great mindset and tells him that when he enters the 3rd trial room, he should send her regards and tell them she is doing well. Hale, surprised, asks about the regards, wondering if she knows someone there. She replies that it is a secret, saying it would not be fun if he knew in advance. Meanwhile, in Shin State, Shin Jihan addresses the crowd at the celebration of the Shin group, announcing that today is a wonderful occasion and asking all the honored guests to enjoy it. The attendees begin praising Jihan, saying that, as expected, he is the president and practically the next head of the Shin family. Pleased by their words, Jihan responds humbly, saying they are too kind and that he was just lucky, attributing all he has to their support. The conversation shifts among the guests as they express confidence in the bright future of the Shin family. They mention that the youngest master, Hale, has been making a name for himself again. They recall his solo victory over the Emerald Turtle and his impressive battle against Adella, who had reached the 4th circle and used the Divine Guard family's secret moon element magic. They say Hale held his own in that fight and marvel that someone once labeled an AI mismatch could perform such feats. Some note that if his face had been hidden, the duel would have seemed like a full-fledged adult magic match. They express excitement about his upcoming participation in the Olympiad and remark that even the head of the family is very pleased with his progress. They begin to speculate that at this rate, the heir's position might shift to Hale. Hearing this, Jihan grows increasingly frustrated. He mutters to himself that everyone is speaking too freely and admits that what he hates the most is Hale. He had believed he had finally gotten rid of him, but now Hale is rising again. Unable to bear the talk, Jihan quietly slips away from the party as the guests begin to notice his absence and wonder where the president has gone. Meanwhile, Jihan stands alone on the terrace. He speaks to himself with dark resolve, saying that this is not good. Hale needs to die. Meanwhile, in Mimir's well, Hale is immersed in reading. After some time, he closes the book, prompting Mimir to ask if he has finished. He replies that yes, if that was everything, then he has finished. Mimir confirms that he has now read all the books about destruction and asks if he has gained a better understanding of the concept. Hale admits that he hasn't. Mimir reassures him, saying that at the very least, he has moved past a vague understanding. Hale says that he can somewhat grasp the structure now. Mimir explains that it's natural not to fully understand. Just like a human without wings can't comprehend how to fly, without the right conditions, destruction remains out of reach. Hale remarks that while the drawing is a bit rough, he gets the idea. Acknowledging this, he says that in order to meet those conditions, he has no choice but to enter the 3rd trial. Mimir agrees, saying that all the answers are written on the 3rd page. Hale then asks if, by any chance, the person Mimir wanted him to send regards to is the one who teaches destruction. She tells him that if he's curious, he should go in and see for himself, noting that he has finished reading all the books. Hale asks if there is some kind of restriction that prevents her from talking about the 3rd trial page. Mimir clarifies that it's not a restriction, it's a promise, one made just between the two of them. Hale comes out from the Mimir well and wonders aloud what kind of promise Mimir made that she cannot say a single word about the 3rd trial. He grabs the Idrid's book and remarks that the reason must be on the 3rd page of the 3rd trial. As he places his hand on the page, he finds himself in a forest. He notes that it is not just any ordinary forest, only ridiculously huge trees surround him and questions where exactly the place is. While walking further, he thinks they might have ended up in another strange space like before. But this time there is no guide, and he cannot hear his master's voice. He begins to suspect that the entire forest might be the trial page. He acknowledges how vast the forest is and remarks that it is absolutely ridiculous, thinking that his master's magic truly surpasses imagination. No matter how far he goes, he sees no end. Upon reaching a certain point, he questions what kind of test it could be. Suddenly, the earth begins to shake, and he wonders if it is an earthquake. He senses that something is staring at him, and when he turns around, a huge reptile appears close by. He is stunned that something so close went unnoticed and describes its features: slitted eyes typical of a reptile, armor like scales as tough as a crocodile, claws and fangs sharp as blades. He concludes that it is a rank-exempt disaster-class drake, a creature he had thought was just a myth. He realizes that defeating such a beast must be the test and mutters that taking it down is impossible. He then notices he cannot move, and even the lightest breath of the drake makes the mana in the air tremble. He acknowledges that this creature is on a completely different level from anything he has faced before, and realizes the drake sees him as nothing more than a bundle of mana, its ultimate prey. He doubts whether he can even escape and recognizes that even at his current speed, outrunning the drake is impossible. More concerning, his body refuses to move. He admits that if the drake charges at him now, it will be the end. Then, he questions why the drake isn't moving any closer and wonders if something is stopping it. At that moment, a voice praises him, and an elf girl appears. She observes that even when faced with an out-of-class monster, he refuses to give up hope, and that his will is like steel. She acknowledges that despite the overwhelming situation, he remains calm and composed. She tells him he passes and that he should now be able to move. Hale asks who she is, and she introduces herself as Elena Greenwood, once known as the Guardian of the Forest, a Grand Mage, and an old friend of Raybell. Hale remains surprised by Elena's presence. She calmly asks if they should drive the drake away. Then, addressing the drake, she says that, blinded by desire, it stepped into her domain, and for that, she will command it. In recognition of its patience, and despite it ruining her garden, she forgives it and tells it to quietly return to the forest where it belongs, a remnant of the fallen noble. With a spell, she repairs the garden. Hale observes that the forest itself seems to resonate, as if declaring Elena its ruler. She warns the drake that if it cannot understand her words, it will return to the nothingness of the Forsaken. Suddenly, the drake growls in pain as countless wounds appear on its body, yet no sound is heard. Hale wonders what just happened, noting that it felt like only an afterimage, as if something had swept across the drake at immense speed. He questions what kind of technique she used. Elena gives the drake a final warning to leave. The drake then departs, and its wounds heal instantly. Hale is astonished, wondering if that creature was truly an unranked disaster-class being, and who this woman could be, to face such a being so effortlessly. Elena then checks on him, asking if he is alright. He replies that he is and thanks her. She notes that he must have been quite shocked and asks him to follow her, calling him her successor. Elena takes Hale to her residence and offers him a cup of tea, telling him to try it. It's the herbal tea Ray used to enjoy and should help him feel calmer. As Hale begins sipping it, he wonders what kind of tea it is, as his mind clears up instantly. After finishing it, Elena expresses her gladness that he enjoyed it and asks if it suited his taste. Hale replies that it's the most delicious tea he's ever had. She says she's relieved and asks if he feels a bit calmer now. Hale admits he feels embarrassed for having shown such an unsightly side of himself. Elena reassures him that there's nothing to be embarrassed about, and just the fact that he didn't give up in front of a drake is impressive. Hale confirms that it really was a drake, saying he couldn't even move. Elena explains that although the drake is the ruler of the forest, it normally wouldn't come near her territory, but this time it must have been too tempted. Hale questions what it had to resist, and she explains that the pure, high-density mana he carries is like the ultimate delicacy to a drake, which likely made it see him as incredibly appetizing enough to temporarily forget its fear of her. She then asks if he has any other questions. Hale wonders if this is really inside Idrid's book, because it feels too real to be within a book. He notes that it took 15 minutes to walk from where the drake was to Elena's house, which shows how vast the forest is, completely different in scale from the previous trial pages. He asks where exactly they are. Elena explains that this is within Idrid's book, spanning pages 214 to 232, the third trial page. Hale suddenly stands and desperately asks if the drake was just a fake created by magic. Elena replies that it's not real, but also not fake. When he asks what she means, she explains that the space is created based on records of the past, a world inside Idrid's book replicating the Greenwood Forest that once existed. She adds that it might be easier to understand if she called it a copied world, making it neither real nor fake. Hale asks if this means they recreated a world exactly as recorded in the past and placed it inside Idrid's book, and wonders how such a thing is even possible. Elena says she doesn't know the details either, that the only ones who could understand that level of magic are Ray himself or the sole successor of his magic, which would be Hale. She tells him that once he reaches Ray's level, he will be able to understand it. Hale then asks why the master created this space. Elena answers that it was to pass down a certain magic to him. When he asks what kind of magic, she tells him it's the level of a Bataneo magic third circle master, a magic essential for mastering destruction. The eyes that see through the essence of magic. The divine eyes. Hale, looking into Elena's golden eyes, says those are the mystic eyes of the Bataneo style, the divine eyes. Elena confirms it and explains that her divine eyes are not perfect. Only Ray and Hale, as the successors, can fully control them. She says Ray had asked her to awaken that magic for Hale, and for that reason, she exists here at least as a record. Meanwhile, Inhyak rides in a car and instructs Seok Hyun to report. Seok Hyun begins by saying he will report on the previously mentioned matter. Young Master Minhyuk and Lady Minji showed little interest in young Master Hale, which had been expected. Lady Si-ah also appears indifferent, and it seems that the family head's orders had a significant impact. Inhyak notes that Si-ah has become somewhat gentler, but doubts she would simply leave Hale alone. Seok Hyun adds that she is most likely being cautious because she knows Inhyak's shadows are attached to Hale. Inhyak then asks about Jihan. Seok Hyun reports that young Master Jihan seemed somewhat wary, but that was all. Even the party he hosted previously didn't show any suspicious signs. Inhyak concludes that both Si-ah and Jihan have learned to separate personal feelings from official matters. He then instructs them not to lower their guard until the protection period ends and to keep a close watch. Seok Hyun casts a silence magic spell and explains he blocked the sound due to classified information. He proceeds to report on the investigation into whether someone within the family is in contact with the Black Magic Tower. So far, 32 individuals have been investigated, including elders dissatisfied with young Master Hale and high-ranking executives of affiliated companies. In regard to the Black Magic Tower, everything appears clean. Inhyak responds that if it is not limited to the Black Magic Tower, then it is not clean. Seok Hyun, showing the tabs, confirms it out of the 32 people, 5 have rather suspicious backgrounds. If this situation escalates, the hyenas might have caught on. Inhyak says that he will take care of those people personally. Elena now stands behind Hale and says that from this moment on, they will begin training to master the Divine Eye. Hale responds by asking her to make it as intense as possible. She places her hands on his eyes and instructs him to close them. As he does, she tells him she will now infuse her mana into him slowly, gradually. She then casts a magic spell on his back and begins explaining the Divine Eye. She says that normally, information about the Divine Eye becomes available only after reaching the 4th circle, and one would need to search through other books to find it. Hale begins to wonder. He recalls that even in Idrid and Mimir's books, or while reading about countermeasures, there was no mention of the Divine Eye. It becomes clear to him that access to Divine Eye information is completely restricted unless one reaches the 4th circle. Hale then asks if the other book she mentioned earlier refers to Mimir's book. Elena asks if he knows about Mimir's book. He replies that yes, he has received a message from Mimir, who asked him to tell him that she is doing well, saying it is a private promise between the two of them. At that moment, Hale notices a slight waver in Elena's mana and wonders whether he has said something unnecessary. Elena then speaks, saying she's sorry and that it's a relief he has already met Mimir. She suggests saving the topic of Mimir for later and returning to the subject of the Divine Eye. She explains that the reason the Divine Eye is only revealed at the 4th circle isn't a major secret. It's simply because she exists within Idrid's book on the 3rd trial page. Hale asks if she is inside the book. Elena confirms this and says Ray placed her at this location and entrusted all explanations to her. She adds that there was also a limitation on how much information could be recorded in the book and remarks that Ray really knows how to work people hard. Hale mutters that Mimir had said something similar about the amount of information that could be recorded. He recalls that just including the trial pages and the successor verification alone required such an enormous amount of magical power that it couldn't all fit into a single book. That's why Idrid's tome only contains essential information, while the rest was compiled into a separate volume, Mimir's book. Elena then says that everything is ready and instructs Hale to open his eyes. As he does, he begins to wonder Elena's mana is now completely synchronized with his infinity circle, to the point where he can't even tell whether the mana is hers or his. He tells Elena that something feels strange. She confirms it, saying that it does indeed feel a little odd because she has blocked his optic nerves with her mana. When he asks if she blocked his eyes, she responds that it's too early to be surprised. She explains that the divine eye is a sixth sense, one that exists separately from the 5 common senses. To train that sixth sense, she continues, all other senses must be removed: touch, smell, taste, all will gradually fade away, and finally, even hearing. Hale begins to realize it's happening already. He can't sense anything. Elena then says that she now invites the successor into the world of death. Hale wonders about a world where the 5 senses have disappeared. Without sight, there is nothing to see. Without hearing, there is nothing to hear. Without touch, he can't even tell if he is standing or sitting. With the loss of smell and taste, his body becomes incapable of feeling any external stimulus. He questions whether his body is still functioning normally, then doubts whether he is even still alive. He admits to himself that he is scared, terrified. He realizes this is on a different level from just having vision blocked by darkness or being blind. It feels like being attacked by a wave of solitude where nothing can be felt in the darkness, but concludes that this is hell. But he reminds himself that this is just training. He recalls Elena's words about the mind's eye, the ability to see mana, being a sixth sense unrelated to the 5. That means he should still be able to see mana even in this darkness, so he starts focusing on seeing it. Meanwhile, Elena wonders how Hale maintains such a calm posture. She knows no one can stay calm after having all their senses sealed. After 1 minute, they begin to go mad. After 2 minutes, they start thinking of death. After 3 minutes, they reach the point of wanting to end their own life. She reflects that this is the fate of those trapped by the sensory sealing spell and acknowledges that she knows better than anyone how terrifying it is. She had planned to just let him experience a small taste and then release it right away. She remembers that she obtained this spell by going through it step by step, getting used to it little by little. But Hale has had all 5 senses sealed for over 3 minutes already and is still completely fine. No, rather, the forest is now resonating with his mana. With that realization, she decides they can proceed as planned. After a while, Elena remarks that it is amazing it has already been 20 minutes since the training started. She notes that Hale's breathing is stable, his mana circle has settled in place, and he is in a perfectly steady state. She says this is the successor chosen by Idrid's library and that Ray already knew he could endure the sensory sealing spells. Hale then says Elena might be listening and asks if she can release the sensory block. She replies that she will. As she does, he sits up and says he can finally breathe again. She then asks if it was okay and how he overcame the sensory seal, saying it must have been an unimaginable terror. Hale admits that a world with all 5 senses sealed is horrifying just to think about again, but he kept telling himself it was safe training. He says he desperately brainwashed himself, suppressed his fear, and focused only on seeing mana. Elena asks if that is all, stating that it is not a fear that can be overcome just by brainwashing. Hale agrees, saying she is right and that he actually almost gave up in the middle of it. He explains that even if he understood it was training, his body would not follow if it did not accept it. He describes the short moment as feeling eternal, a hell called solitude, and says that when his concentration was about to break, a thought crossed his mind that it was still better than a year ago. He recalls the moment he learned he was unfit for AI magic, the day he was denied the path of a magician. Abandoned by his family and father, he says he was already living in hell. He believes that, compared to losing everything and drowning in despair, this is better than a year ago. Elena asks if the sensory seal is better, and Hale confirms it is, saying it is just a trial for him to move forward. She asks just how much he has endured, and Hale responds that he is fine now, it is all in the past anyway. He happily chants that he is now grateful to have found his own special path. Hale then thanked Elena, saying that in the darkness where his senses were sealed, he saw her mana and that it was really gentle. Thanks to that, he felt at ease. He asks if it is because he was influenced by her. With tears in her eyes, she says she never thought she would hear those words again. Ray. While having tea, Hale mentions that he has been going back and forth between Mimir's book and the current place. Elena responds that she is glad to hear Mimir is doing well and says she has heard some good news thanks to him. Hale replies that he only delivered the message. Elena then asks if he has met Mimir. He must have heard about her and Greenwood Forest. Hale says no, not at all. Mimir told him it was a promise and could not tell him anything. Elena comments that Mimir still remembers that promise, but she herself cannot keep that promise anymore. She then remarks that since he mentioned a promise, it seems like Mimir has taken quite a liking to him. Hale denies that, saying they don't have a bad relationship anyway, and asks what the promise is exactly. Elena says it seems that the promise is really bothering him and apologizes, explaining that it is a secret, a promise just between the two of them, and she cannot tell him, nor can she tell Ray. Hale then says that in that case, since Mimir made a promise in the past, it means Mimir must have been a real person in the past, like Elena. Hearing this, Elena is surprised and asks if Mimir hasn't told him that. She says she doesn't think she can answer that question either, and cannot reveal what Mimir is keeping secret. Hale replies that if she can't tell him, it's fine if it is an oath, it can't be broken. Elena thanks him for understanding them. As Hale gets ready to leave, he says he should head back for today and that he will be counting on her from now on. Elena says they will have to keep training until he completely masters the Divine Eye. Hale then asks if there is any special relationship between Lady Elena and Mimir. Elena answers that they are friends, protecting the Bettino's magic alongside Ray, and says that like constellations, even if they are far apart, they are still connected. Hale then returns to Mimir's well and announces his arrival. Mimir, upon seeing him, wonders aloud that he has come back pretty fast. He explained that he had school tomorrow, so he returned early. She asks if he really went through proper training. In response, Hale shows her the divine eyes. Mimir observes the sluggish mana floating around him and remarks that it seems he did train properly. As she examines him more closely and holds her face, she notes that his condition still seems unstable, but is convinced the training was done correctly. She adds that it is strange after that kind of training, he should not be this fine and finds it fascinating. Hale comments that her true mana feels cold and composed. Mimir responds, asking if that's so, and admits that she is rarely a cold person. Then, sitting casually, she brings up that he went through the 5 senses sealing training and asks if he is really okay. He assures her that he is fine. She wonders if Elena went easy on him because of her soft nature, or if the magic of the forest helped him. Curious, he asks about the magic of the forest. Surprised, she questions if he went through that intense magic and came out without any trauma, suggesting he must have had some kind of trick. Hale then shares with Mimir the events from a year ago, the same ones he told Elena. Mimir wonders if something like that really happened. Hale explains that until a year ago, he had been completely lost, and because everyone had high expectations of him, the backlash was even harder, leaving him to live in the darkness of despair. But now, he sees it all as magical training that strengthens his abilities, and even having his senses sealed doesn't seem like a big deal anymore. Mimir, turning serious, asks if the darkness she always sensed in him was because he had become used to such an environment. She acknowledges that now she understands. Hale finds it surprising he had expected Mimir to brush it off casually, yet her expression is serious. He recalls Elena's words, saying that they, too, would become those who understand him so he can understand them. He then remarks that the training was a little hard. Mimir follows up by asking if, since the training went well, he thinks he can manage within the promised time. Hale responds confidently, saying, of course, he can. He adds that it's unbelievable how much his year of despair helped him realize he is actually a very lucky mage. There is no time to stand still now. As the successor of Legend, he cannot stop moving forward. Meanwhile, in his room, Hale lies on his bed, muttering that, according to Lady Elena, the Divine Eye is an evil eye that develops alongside the Infinity Circle. At the first circle, it allows the user to see the color of mana. At the second circle, it enables recognition of fragmented structures of magic formulas. At the third circle, it reveals the essence of magic. To fully master it, one must be able to see mana at will, meaning the Divine Eye must be used more freely. He then remembers that a message arrived from the Blue Tower Master earlier. Upon checking the message, he notes that his opponent has been decided a 5th circle mage named Jihan. At Obelisk Academy's indoor magic training ground, Adella and Hale are engaged in magic training. Watching them, Sunshine wonders whether they are even human. While attacking, Adella asks about the Blue Tower Master's email, confirming whether they really sent a strategy guide. As Hale blocks her attacks, he replies that it wasn't a profile, but indeed a strategy guide. She dodges his counterattack, but is caught off guard when his wind spear causes her to fall. As Hale approaches and offers her a hand, he admits he doesn't quite understand the intention behind the guide either and asks for her opinion. Adella accepts his hand and requests to see the profile. Hale shows it to her on his phone. Surprised, she notes that it really is more of a strategy guide than a profile. Sunshine approaches and says he wants to see it too. Adella comments on the flawless analysis data and advises focusing less on data analysis and more on improving skills. She suggests that perhaps this is the Blue Tower Master's way of being considerate. Hale agrees that might be the case but speculates that, given his disadvantage, they may have given him a slight edge. Sunshine remarks that either way, it's a good thing. As Hale and Adella resume their training, Hale shouts back to Sunshine that training always beats overthinking. Later in the evening, Adella returns to her dorm and lies on her bed, remarking that she should at least change before sleeping. She reflects on Hale's moonlight bullet, acknowledging that it was faster and stronger than her own. Feeling frustrated, she admits that despite her hard work, there's still a significant gap. Sitting up, she resolves to push herself harder. Since they've committed to their secret vision magic, she refuses to lose to Shin Hale in moon attribute magic. Determined, she jumps to her feet, declaring that she shouldn't be sleeping yet. She decides to take a cold shower and review the footage from today's training. Meanwhile, in Greenwood Forest, Hale remarks that he hadn't expected to stop needing the fifth sense seal spell so soon. Elena replies that it seems he has now completely mastered the ability to see mana. Hale confirms this, saying that although he still gets a headache if he stares for too long, he can now see mana at will. Elena then suggests moving on to the next phase of training. This time, he is to use his mystic eye to observe her magic circle. As he observes, he will gradually understand the essence of the magic and recognize a gap and opening through which the spell can be broken. Hale appears confused at the mention of a gap. Elena forms a magic circle and explains that every spell has a weak point. Using that gap to collapse and erase the magic circle is what they call destruction. Hale is surprised by this. Elena continues, saying that the purpose is to maximize the mystic eye in order to nullify magic, and encourages him to try, expressing confidence that he will grasp it quickly. As she activates the magic circle, Hale watches through his mystic eye and senses mana with a strong, warm aura. However, despite searching, he can't locate any gaps in the circle. He reminds himself that he must find a gap. Elena instructs him to activate the mystic eye and analyze the structure of the circle. Doing so, Hale recalls a theory from Mimir's book, which states that no magic formula is perfect, and gaps inevitably exist in every spell. This is a foundational concept in dismantling magic. Elena urges him to see through the essence of the magic, listen to the sound of mana, and capture the gap within the spell. From that moment onward, she says, the magic will cease to be magic. Hale follows her guidance, focusing on destruction, breaking, and nullifying. The next day at Obelisk Academy, a nobles meeting takes place. The instructor concludes the session by stating that it's the end of the Olympiad preliminary strategy meeting. After the meeting, Kangen approaches Shin and Inhyak, expressing surprise at the head of the Shin clan personally attending. Inhyak responds that he could say the same, pointing out that the Blue Tower Master shouldn't have had a reason to attend either. Kangen explains that he's participating merely as a sponsor, or more accurately, a potential sponsor. Inhyak infers that this suggests the Blue Tower might dispatch artisans. Kangen clarifies that he's still considering it, reiterating that he's only a potential sponsor. Inhyak remarks that it's surprising Kangen is even considering it, adding that the Blue Tower probably isn't in a position to spare artisans at the moment. Kangen notes that fortunately, things have been going well, and the Olympiad is considered worth the effort. He mentions the Korean team, led by Shin Hale, might just pull off a miracle and win a gold medal for Korea. He adds that he's looking forward to it just as Inhyak likely is. Inhyak then asks if that means Hale made the same proposal to Kangen as he did to him, and inquires what exactly Hale proposed. Kangen replied that Hale had said he would win the gold medal at the Olympiad and asked for an engineer to be sent. Kangen then asks what Hale told Inhyak. Inhyak shares that Hale said he had already won the gold medal and requested as much support as possible until then. He remarks that Hale has completely changed from a year ago and now seems very confident. Kangen asks if Inhyak accepted Hale's proposal without setting any conditions. Inhyak confirms this, saying that offering support isn't that difficult anyway. However, he questions whether Kangen is seriously considering dispatching artifact artisans based on a child's promise. Kangen responds affirmatively, saying that as long as Hale meets the conditions he set, he will gladly invest. When Inhyak asks about those conditions, Kangen reveals that Hale must defeat a 5th circle mage in a one-on-one battle. Inhyak comments that it's not a bad condition. Kangen then asks if Inhyak plans to come watch the match. Inhyak asks if it would be alright, and Kangen replies that he's more than welcome. Meanwhile, in Greenwood Forest, Hale lies flat on the ground, saying that he's exhausted. Elena tells him he's done well, and that this concludes all of the training. As he gets up, he tells her she's the one who worked hard, and that he has come this far thanks to her. Elena hopes she didn't push him too hard just because it was the final session. She offers him tea, saying it will help relieve his fatigue. Hale takes the cup, thanks her, and says he will enjoy it. Elena then mentions that Hale is different from Ray. Ray really disliked anything physically demanding and preferred solving everything with magic. Whenever something required physical effort, he would grumble and complain. Hale comments that for a mage of Ray's caliber, that's understandable. Elena addresses Hale as successor, thanking him for keeping up with her. She tells him that his training with her has come to an end. Teaching him has been enjoyable, and though it should make her happy, she feels both relieved and a little sad. She explains that from the moment she began waiting for him, she must have known a time to part would eventually come. Hale asks what she means, and she explains that once her role is complete, the page of dismantling disappears, she will vanish along with the forest. This, she says, was a promise she made with Ray. Hale becomes sad upon hearing this. Elena urges him not to make such a sad face, saying that just like this world silently melting away, it proves it was something created. She tells him goodbye. Hale shouts that without her, he could never have even dreamed of mastering dismantling. Elena says she's glad he's Ray's successor, someone truly capable of inheriting his magic properly, and that it's a great relief. With tears in her eyes, she says that her only regret is not being able to see how much more he will grow. She holds Hale's hand and urges him to never give up, no matter what hardships or trials come his way. As she starts to fade, she tells him to take care of Mimir, saying that Mimir gets lonely easily and might be a bit of a bother. Hale realizes that this is a final farewell. He feels something he's never experienced before, a deep, indescribable pain, an inevitable sorrow. Elena then gives him her final words congratulating him, and telling him that he is now a third circle master. With that, Hale finds himself back in his dorm. He immediately opens the book of Idrid and sees that the page of dismantling has completely disappeared. With tears in his eyes, he thanks Lady Elena and vows to carry the days he trained in that forest in his heart, along with the eternal farewell that allows him to move forward. The next day, at the Blue Tower duel training ground, Kangen announces that the duel between Hale and the 5th Circle Mage is about to begin. Inhyak asks when the match actually starts. Sitting between them, Sunshin thinks why he is stuck between the two of them and wishes Adella were there instead. But she is down in the arena assisting Hale. Kangen then says that he gives Hale around a 10% chance and asks Inhyak what percentage he gives him. Inhyak replies that at best, it is 2%. Kangen comments that it is a harsh assessment, and then asks Sunshin, putting his friendship aside and thinking objectively, what he thinks Hale's chances of winning are. Sunshin says he thinks it is about 50%. Kangen says that it is a surprisingly generous estimate and asks the reason. Sunshin replies that he does not really have one, and just thinks that if Hale goes all out, it might be an even match. He adds that Hale is still growing at an incredible rate and has not even shown his full power yet. Kangen then says that Sunshin is saying Hale has not been fighting seriously until now. In the arena, Jeong-soo says that all magical defenses have been checked and instructs both of them to take their positions. Hale's opponent, Hanwook, says that he did not expect to end up facing the Shin Divine Clan prodigy like this. Jeong-soo then orders the match to begin. Hale asks him to go easy on him. Hanwook says he will let him have the first move. Junior. Hale replies that he will gladly accept his kindness. He then uses the wind cutter technique, forms a fireball and locks it in, then forms a flare ball and locks that in too. Hale thinks that since he gave up the first strike, he will pour everything into this first attack. Hanwook, seeing this, says that this must be the adaptive magic he has only heard rumors about, and finds it fascinating. Hale asks if he isn't being a bit too relaxed. Hanwook replies that it's because it's a situation where he can afford to be relaxed. Hale then hurls the attack toward him and says confidence, let's see how long it lasts. Seeing the incoming attack, Hanwook says it's impressive. He notes that while they all look like the same spell, some twist slowly along different paths, making them difficult to handle. He forms a shield around himself, muttering that if a 5th circle spell came at him like that, it would be terrifying. He then casts the 5th circle's non-attribute defense magic, Absolute Shield. Hale mutters that even a 5th circle spell is easily blocked by the famed Absolute Shield, but its weakness is that it also isolates the user. Right now, Hanwook can't stop him from closing in. Hanwook says that seeing Hale left a gap for approach, it must have been his plan from the start to charge in, though it won't change anything. Hale attacks the shield and asks if he's sure about that. He uses interference magic and creates cracks in the shield. Everyone wonders how a crack appeared in a 5th circle shield. Hale says it's already too late. Hanwook remarks that he anticipated the interference with his magic and set it to accelerate afterward. The overlapping path of wind and flame becomes one and causes a huge firestorm inside the shield, which then shatters into pieces. Hale says it would have been nice if Hanwook had let his guard down just a little more. Hanwook responds that one can be relaxed if needed, but one should never let one's guard down. With that, he appears with another shield surrounding him and says that is what the Tower Master taught him. Hale wonders at how Hanwook created a new absolute shield the moment the last one shattered, realizing this is what the 5th circle class is like. Hanwook then says that now it's his turn to make a move. Hale thinks that, as expected, the situation matches the data sent by the Tower Master. He predicts that Hanwook's next move will be his special flame magic combined with a close-range attack using physical enhancement. As Hanwook begins to charge at him, Hale cautiously mutters that Hanwook is currently interested in his magic and, in order to observe him further, won't aim for any vital spots. Still, he knows Hanwook won't go easy on him. He believes that if Hanwook aims for a hit, it will definitely be a right punch. Hale dodges Hanwook's slash, but his arm gets injured. Despite that, he manages to punch Hanwook in the stomach and pushes him back. Hanwook comments that Hale reacts well even at that speed. Hale replies that he has trained quite a bit in close quarters combat. Hanwook begins gathering flames and agrees with him. Hale observes that even though close combat is Hanwook's specialty, he analyzes his opponent's strength and adjusts his stance accordingly, making him far from ordinary. Hanwook mocks the future generation as frightening, noting that a 3rd circle mage with such close combat skills is indeed impressive. He then declares that from this point onward, he will fight seriously. With that, he casts Fire Rain. Hale realizes that this is a wide area annihilation spell, a privilege only 5th circle mages possess. Hanwook states that a 3rd circle spell can neither block nor dodge this, and asks how Hale plans to stop it, questioning if the match ends here. Meanwhile, Hale uses his resonance technique to form a water shield that blocks all fire and rain attacks. Hanwook is surprised and questions how a 3rd circle spell is capable of such a feat, wondering if it is also a type of adaptive magic. Adella notes that fire, rain, and water shield are clashing. Sunshin says he can't see anything and asks what is going on. Kangen mutters that while water shield is definitely a 3rd circle spell, it behaves as if it's above the 4th circle. Meanwhile, Hanwook, struggling to see through the mist, wonders how even he can't see anything and asks where Hale is planning to launch his surprise attack from. Hale uses his mystic eye and remarks that even if he can't see it, the mana reveals the red mana of Hanwook's flame sword. He rushes toward Hanwook from behind, but Hanwook notices the approach and slashes with his fire sword. Hale blocks the slashes, and Hanwook wonders when Hale managed to get so close. As he considers forming Absolute Shield, he decides against it, thinking that it had already been broken once and is too risky to rely on again. Hanwook then uses his yellow mana and launches an attack at Hale, who precisely dodges it. Hanwook begins forming an earth shield, but Hale pours his magic into stopping him before the wall is completed. As the wall pieces shatter, Hale moves in to punch, but Hanwook notices his speed and quickly forms blue mana to strike at him. Hale gets slightly injured by the strike, but immediately counters with a fire attack. This time, Hanwook responds by forming a water shield. As smoke spreads across the field, Hanwook remarks that the obstructed vision is becoming annoying, but claims that Hale's little tricks end here. Meanwhile, Hale uses his mystic eye to pierce through the essence of the spell, listens to the voice of mana, and identifies an opening in the magic. From that moment, the magic ceases to function as intended. Hale then launches a spell at Hanwook, whose magic fails and disappears. Hale states that the moment one is sure of victory is the most dangerous one. A huge swirl forms with Hale's Tempest Circus technique, causing Hanwook to collapse, and Jiang Sua declares that the duel is over, announcing Shin Hale as the winner. In the Blue Magic Tower training room waiting area, Hale appears exhausted and says he is so tired. Kangen, who is sitting there, greets him and remarks that it was an incredible match, admitting he couldn't believe his eyes the entire time. He says he had wondered about Hale's actions during the duel, but realizing it was all preparation for the final magic nullification gave him chills. He likens it to watching a perfectly designed chessboard. Kangen then suspiciously asks what that last spell was and brings up the final Tempest Circus, noting that it is a 4-circle spell. He questions how Hale overcame the drawbacks of memorization. Hale responds by asking if Kangen would believe him if he said he modified memorize with a transformation spell. Kangen says he wouldn't. He admits he could maybe understand up to 3-circle spells, but 4-circle is a different story. He points out that Hale didn't just fix the weaknesses of Memorize, he completely erased them. He adds that it's a complete contradiction. Spell activation speed close to instant casting, and free-form spells that break conventional rules. On top of that, Hale even nullified the opponent's magic. Kangen seriously asks what kind of magic Hale is using. Meanwhile, in Kim Kangen's office, Jeong Sua says she will handle the engineer dispatch for the Olympiad by tomorrow. Kangen tells her to coordinate with the contractor so it won't affect the other projects. He then asks if she thinks they can really win the gold medal at this Olympiad. She replies that she doesn't think it's entirely impossible. Kangen points out that yesterday, she said even a bronze medal was out of reach. She answered that the situation had changed since yesterday. Kangen then asks what kind of magic Hale is using. She asks if he didn't observe the entire match with the Eye of Ruby. Kangen says he did, but even after watching it, he still couldn't figure it out. He mentions that Hale used steam to hide from his Eye of Ruby, suggesting that Hale even included a trick to conceal his magic. He admits it's a bit scary. While he understands that Hale disrupted the Inferno spell formula, he has no idea how the formula was broken. She says that even with the Eye of Ruby, one of the top 3 detection-type mystic eyes in existence, she couldn't grasp what magic it was. Kangen says it bugged him so much that he asked Hale directly in the waiting room. Hale says to remember what he said before, that a mage has the right to keep their magic secret, and adds that he can't reveal anything about his magic. Kangen says Hale refused to explain, called it a secret, and told him to figure it out himself. She asks if there's a chance Hale did something illegal. Kangen replies that it's not, that the purity and structure of the mana are far too clean for anything like that. The only thing he has figured out is that the magic Hale uses is not transformation magic, at least. Either way, he says, this year's Olympiad will be worth watching. The next morning, Hale lies in bed and says his whole body aches, and that he thinks he slept for about 8 hours. He notes that maybe it's because he used resonance and dispelling during the match, as his fatigue isn't going away like it usually does. He reflects that when he uses resonance, he can't use mana at all, making even the master's robe useless, which is kind of a big deal, and tells himself that he will have to be more careful from now on. He then receives a message from his father, who tells him he probably overexerted himself during the fight the day before, and that a medical leave has been arranged for him. His father advises him to take the day to rest and manage his condition, adding that he was worried since Hale left after the match without saying anything. Hale remarks that it's good, then maybe he's regained a bit of his father's trust. But not yet, he thinks. The real part starts now. There's no time left until the Olympiad. He then goes to Mimir's well, where Mimir greets him and asks how the match went. Hale replies that he won, it was an easy win. She questions that, saying he looks like he's about to collapse. Hale admits it wasn't easy. If anything had gone wrong, he would have lost. He also notes that thanks to the Blue Tower Master's information, he had a huge advantage. So even though he won, it doesn't feel satisfying at all. He then asks Mimir to bring him a book, one about the 4th Infinity Circle, specifically the Ring of Expansion. Mimir says she has gathered tons of books on expansion just for Hale, so he should read every last one of them. At Obelisk Academy, an instructor tells the students that from chapters 5 to 10, which were assigned earlier, they are to write about the properties of AI magic and submit their answers. The instructor adds that if they look through the material carefully, it shouldn't be too difficult. Meanwhile, as Hale sits in class, he thinks that the Ring of Expansion is fundamentally different from the previous rings. The rings of deliberation, resonance, and interference are formed with a layered, petal-like structure. However, the Ring of Expansion surrounds 3 circles, which rotate in a much more stable formation. As a result, the entire infinity circle stabilizes and increases magic efficiency. Once the circle is stabilized, several weaknesses are addressed. The mental energy consumption of the Ring of Deliberation is improved, the number and duration of resonances increase, and the penalties from using resonance are reduced. Additionally, the nullification resistance of interference decreases, and the burden of using dispelling magic becomes lighter. The same improvements apply to Mystic Eyes as well. However, since this is a completely new type of ring, unlike any before, weaving it won't be easy, and that's the biggest issue. According to a book Hale read at Mimir's well, it takes at least a year to form the Ring of Expansion. The more circles a mage has, the harder this accomplishment becomes. He reflects that it's just too much, especially since he doesn't even have the time. At the Obelisk Academy indoor training grounds, Hale is exercising alongside Adella and Sunchen, both of whom are visibly exhausted and breathing heavily. Hale then announces that it's time for a 10-minute break. Sunchen collapses to the ground, saying he feels like he's dying. Adella, concerned, asks if he's okay and urges him to hang in there, reminding him that they promised to work harder. She recalls how, on the night of the fight with Hanwook, Hale had said he was really tired and asked if they could postpone training. But Sunshin had insisted, saying that no matter how tired one is, feedback should always be done the same day. That was Hale's own principle. Adella still protests, saying today is just too much and suggests they rest and resume training tomorrow. But Sunshin refuses, stating that training while tired is the true essence of training. Skipping it, he says, is like throwing away 30% of the progress. That's what their teacher Hale always said, and he pointedly asks if Hale has already forgotten that. Hale admits he was being lazy and said he must not forget his original mindset. To prepare for the intensive training starting tomorrow, he expressed genuine anticipation. Then, dragged Sunshin along, saying they would start with the first move and take it step by step. The previous day, as Sunshin walks with Adella, he says that even if Hale is his friend, a genius is still a genius. He calls him seriously insane for scrapping the entire strategy and coming up with a new one on the spot just because the opponent gave up the first move. He asks Adella if Hale was like that when he was a kid, too. Adella replies that he was a bit younger than he is now. Sunshin asks if she means he was mentally immature, and she confirms, adding that back then, she had said he was optimistic and seemed to overestimate his abilities. She says that now, as she follows in his footsteps, nothing has changed. In fact, she says she is enjoying it even more and thinks she is becoming even more captivated by his magic than before. Sunshin asks in surprise if Hale, the master of perfectionism, really had a face like that. Adella responds that at least before he entered the obelisk, he did. Sunshin remarks that Hale's AI incompatibility judgment might not have been a curse but a blessing. Adella gives him a strange look, and he quickly adds that he does not mean it in a bad way, explaining that in movies and comics, geniuses often have a unique arrogance. Adella says she thinks arrogance slows down growth, and that Hale does not have that kind of arrogance at all. She suggests that being labeled unfit might have erased it from him. She explains that because he experienced failures, he became as perfect as he is now, and asks if that is what Sunshin means. Sunshin confirms, saying that is exactly how he sees it. He adds that Hale might get mad if he hears this, but since he has found his own path and is doing well now, it is something they can talk about. Sunshin then says to Adella with determination that they have to give it their all, show Hale that they are on the same path he chose, go all in, and get ready for the Olympiad. Adella agrees, saying they should work hard together. Meanwhile, in the present, as Sunshin mutters, that is how it was. Hale hands him a boost drink and asks if he did well. Sunshin says to give him the disease and then the cure. Hale asks when he gave him a disease, saying he gave him a prescription with the medicine. Taking the drink, Sunshin thanks him. Hale then tells Adella that it is time to resume special training. After the training, as Sunshin and Adella take their break, Hale comes over and tells Adella that he is sorry to interrupt her break, but asks if they can talk for a second. As they step outside, Hale says that now that the Olympiad team is confirmed, he is thinking of revising the training schedule. He mentions that starting tomorrow, they are officially allowed to skip classes. Although the academy has its own training for the Olympiad, he feels that 8 hours just isn't enough. He explains that from now on, they will be having tactical strategy meetings in the mornings. When she asks about the strategy meetings, he shows her a screen and says they will be analyzing each of the Olympiad events and looking into the new rules added this year to find ways to win. Adella says it sounds good, but asks why he is only telling her. Hale responds that Sunshin is already struggling just with the physical training, so even if he told him now, he would be too tired to listen properly. He adds that Jiang Suo of the Blue Magic Tower is already handling the analysis of athletes from other countries day and night. He tells her they are starting tomorrow, and just to keep that in mind. She says that coming up with a strategy themselves is fine, but asks if the third years will actually follow the strategies they make. Hale says there is a way to handle that. The next day, in the academy field, Sunshin asks Hale and Adella if they aren't nervous. Hale says he isn't, and Adella asks why they would be. Sunshin says it's because everyone except them is a third year, and there's that awkward, intimidating, tough to approach feeling. Hale agrees that the word senior does have that effect. Adella says it doesn't work for her because she beats them. A third-year girl, Jiang Hiyun, overhears this and says that Adella is even more arrogant than she had heard. She approaches and asks Adella to repeat what she said earlier about beating them. Adella replies that if Hiyun really wants to hear it again, then there is no one currently in the third year who can beat her. Sunshin, shocked, asks Adella if she's crazy, and she responds that she's just stating the truth. He tells her there's no good in making enemies of their seniors, puts a hand over her mouth, and warns Hale not to say anything either. Hale says he won't, and then turns to greet the seniors, saying he's been waiting. He apologizes but says he must take full command of the team and needs to subdue the seniors first. Senior Kang Shinwoo asks if he means a second year versus third year fight, 3 against 3. Hale corrects him, saying he means all second years versus all third years, making it a 3-on-7 match. Hiyun flinches at this, and Suncheon and Adella are confused. Shinwoo then asks Hale what his goal is, knowing he wouldn't provoke without reason. Hale thinks to himself that Kang Shinwoo, second son of the Shinwoo Kang family, still has the same calm and cautious personality he remembers from when they were younger. He replies that there's no special intention, he just thinks sparring is the best way to measure each other's skills. Senior Jinseok then rushes at Hale, accusing him of wanting to crush them with skill. Shinwoo says the real goal must be to overpower them and take command of the Olympiad team. Jinseok leaps at Hale, yelling that that's what this is all about. Hiyun shouts that his arrogance is over the top and that even patience has limits. She admits that Hale and Adella are talented, but insists this is too much. She says that even if they might win one-on-one, a 3 versus 7 is ridiculous. Pointing at Suncheon, she adds that with someone that useless on their side, there's no way they can win. She warns them that if they apologize now, they'll let it go. Shinwoo tells Hale he really went too far this time. Hale says all the talking is just annoying. Suncheon, frightened, tells Hale he's gone insane. Hale then asks Shinwoo if the real useless one here isn't him, and tells them all to shut up and fight. Jinseok says he didn't want to ruin the mood right from the start, so he tried to mediate, but Hale really ticks him off. He asks Shinwoo if he's okay, and Shinwoo says he is. Jinseok agrees to the match 3 versus 7, but says it would be boring if they just did it straight. He proposes that if they win, they will follow Hale's strategy, as he said. But before he can finish the sentence, Hale interrupts, saying it sounds good and they'll do it that way. Jinseok points out that he hasn't even said what happens if they win, but Hale replies that they can bet anything they want. If they tell him to quit, he will quit, though he says it's not going to happen anyway. The seniors are stunned by his behavior. Hale then points at Hiyun and adds one more condition. If they win, she has to apologize for calling Suncheon useless. Meanwhile, in Obelisk Academy's Coliseum, the announcement states that the field is set on a mountain at night. 5 minutes remain before the siege battle starts, and everyone is ordered to take positions. This 3 versus 7 match is described as a simplified siege battle under international rules, where each team has a designated location, and the goal is to capture the flag placed there. Hale stands close to the flag and says they should wrap it up to here. He then notices Suncheon, who seems worried. Hale asks if something is wrong. Suncheon says Hale really went too far, he provoked the seniors on purpose, and questions whether there was truly a need to turn this into an emotional fight. He says that even without all of this, it already felt like people were willing to follow Hale's lead. Hale replies that just following his words is not enough, they need to obey his words. He reminds Suncheon that he knows better than anyone what kind of battle he will lead from now on. Suncheon questions what will happen if pushing them this hard only causes resentment. Hale says it's fine, there is a way. If they win with overwhelming strength, there will be no room for resentment. Hiyun shouts about Shin Hale, calling him annoying and mocking his confidence about betting anything because he knows he won't lose. Shinwoo tells her to calm down and reminds her there are 5 minutes left. She responds that she can't, questioning why she should apologize for calling a useless guy useless, and says it's driving her crazy. Shinwoo says he wants to calm them down, but admits there is no time. Jinseok remarks that he could not even control his anger and believes the situation is already messed up. He decides to use his rage, saying anger pushes a person's strength to the limit and is the best performance enhancer. The countdown finishes and the battle begins. The seniors rush in all directions. Hale tells Suncheon that he is counting on him. 5 minutes later, Hiyun sits on top of a tree, watching the flag. She is in contact with Jinseok, who asks who is guarding it. She replies that only one person is visible, just the useless guy alone. Jinseok asks if he is guarding it by himself and wonders if someone might be hiding nearby. She says she is not sure and sees no signs of movement. Jinseok tells her not to let her guard down, suspecting that he might be used as bait. She acknowledges and says she will attack carefully. She jumps to the ground and asks Suncheon if he is on guard duty by himself, again calling him the useless one. Suncheon replies that it just turned out that way. She asks if he knew she would be the first to show up, and when he admits it, she asks how. Sunshin explains that Hale said the gorilla would come and predicted that Hiyun would attack as soon as the match started, since she is hot-tempered and was assigned to offense rather than defense. Hiyun expresses disbelief that even knowing she would come, they still left only Sunshin to defend. She begins to attack using flame sniper magic, but Sunshin blocks her attack. She shouts in shock, wondering how someone like him could block a fourth circle spell like flame sniper. Earlier, Hale tells Sunshin that his role is the most important in the match and asks if he is going to run away just because people look down on him. Sunshin replies that he won't and says that Hale has said that he can't hold back anymore. Earlier, Hale tells Sunshin that although he thinks of himself as a dealer, he absolutely isn't. He is a natural-born tank. He explains that mages have a primary attribute. For example, Kim Kangan of the Blue Magic Tower specializes in water, and James Filler, master of the Red Magic Tower, mainly uses fire attribute magic. Jin Hyun also primarily uses fire attribute magic. Hale explains that when using their primary attribute, mana consumption is reduced while power and output increase. He adds that the primary attribute he sees in Sunshin is the null attribute with a specialization in magic defense. Now, Sunshin forms a huge magic circle and blocks Hyun's attack. She reacts in frustration, shouting that hanging around with Shin Hale and Adella seems to have put him under some illusion. She says that compared to those two, he is just a total extra. Sunshin mutters that she's called him an extra again, and tells her that he knows well he's nothing compared to those two. But if this is the extent of her attacks, he can still put up a fight. Then, two more people join Hyun. She moves towards Sunshin and tells him not to mess around, saying she will shut his mouth. She punches at his shield using the chest impaction technique, but it doesn't break. She wonders what the shield is and why it's so tough, noting it looks like a third circle spell, but one she has never seen before. Then she remarks that with three of them attacking at the same time, he won't be able to block it. This fight is theirs to win. As they prepare to attack, a wind cutter spell suddenly fuses with their magic. They wonder where it comes from. Hyun quickly alerts everyone that it's Shin Hale and warns them to be careful, saying the arrogant guy is hiding nearby. The group begins searching for Shin Hale, and at that moment, a bullet strikes one of them. Hyun recognizes it as Adella's moonlight bullet. Soon after, several more bullets, spears, and fire attacks rain down on them. Hyun, now overwhelmed, calls for help, shouting that all three enemies are over here. Meanwhile, Jinseok finds Hale and Adella standing in front of him. He tells Hyun not to joke and begins to wonder what kind of people they are. He reflects that due to the earlier confusion, he had already sent Shinwoo and another teammate to support Hyun. The situation, he realizes, is far more tangled than expected. Seeing an explosion in the distance, Hale calmly remarks that Sunshin seems to be holding on well. Hyun dodges incoming attacks and desperately calls for help again, shouting that they are all over here. Shinwoo then asks Jinseok for Hale's exact location and where they are supposed to head. Jinseok responds that Shin Hale and Adella are right in front of him. Hyun, under heavy attack, insists they are actually with her. Jinseok, growing frustrated, asks Hale what he has done. Hale replies that there's no need to waste time, it will all be over soon. Jinseok realizes he's walked right into their trap and mutters that if Hale had come alone, he might have bought some time or hidden. But with Adella by his side, it's like being hunted by two beasts, a dragon and a tiger. Hale then casts his magic spell, declaring that this match is their victory, and Adella follows by casting hers. Shinwoo sees the mana stone floating in the air and grows more anxious. Hale grabs the flag, and Jinseok sits helplessly, crying. Shinwoo, along with other seniors, came there and saw Jinseok surrender. On the other side, Hyun also lies on the ground crying. Sunshin happily exclaims that they have won. After the friendly match, both teams gather in the Obelisk Academy conference room. Hyun argues with Jinseok, saying he lets them take the flag cleanly. Jinseok responds by asking why she doesn't try guarding the flag against Hale and Adella herself. She insists he should have held on until Shinwoo returned. Jinseok points out that if she hadn't mistaken Hale and Adella's attack as his, none of it would have happened. Hyun questions if that really was their attack. Shinwoo steps in, telling both to stop fighting over emotions, and says it's not either of their faults, the other team simply performs better. Shinwoo then asks Hale and Adella what trick they used. Hale explains the part he believes they are most curious about. He says that the only one guarding their flag is Sunshin. Hyun asks if Sunshin uses the strange wind cutters or moonlight. Hale replies that, of course, not the spells that trap everyone are his. Jinseok questions how that is possible, saying Hale is right in front of him and asking if he casts the spells from the opposite side. Hale confirms roughly yes while demonstrating them. The others react in shock at the Moonlight Blast technique. Hyun accuses Adella of leaking a secret spell of the Mystic Authority. Hale clarifies that it is not a spell leak. It is something he deciphers through analysis. Shinwoo questions if that even makes sense. Hale asserts that it does, because he has eyes that can see magic formulas. Jinseok says that's impossible. Hale, while continuing the demonstration, explains that he uses his mystic eyes to analyze the Moonlight Blast, and that, at the start of the match, he pre-positions Moonlight Blasts and Wind Cutters around the field. He speaks to Sunshin, who counts the numbers and attacks based on target positioning. When a spell approaches Hyun, Hale quickly controls it. He explains that by using these precast floating spells, he performs long-range magic, and that it's a modified version of the spell he uses against Henwook of the Blue Magic Tower. Kang Hyungmin asks how he aims. Min Taesik agrees, pointing out that the magic flies straight at them with perfect accuracy. Sunshin responds that it is thanks to the numbers he mentioned earlier. Hale explains that the first number is the ID of a fixed spell, and the second is the angle to adjust its trajectory. Hale thinks to himself that he has now shared his magic with Adella and Sunshin, and that, although he hasn't mentioned the Baekneo-style spell, this is all he can reveal. He believes that the third years now know his abilities, as do Adella and Sunshin. Since they are all working together for the Olympiad, sharing a bit makes it easier and helps convince the third years. Hale states once again that his goal is victory, a gold medal, and for that, he needs their full cooperation. He believes the friendly match proves how effective his strategies are. He apologizes for sounding rude earlier and asks them to follow him. He bows and promises to deliver them the championship. After a brief pause, Hyun finally says that she doesn't like it, but will go along with what he says. Park Hana expresses surprise, and Hyun asks why. Park Hana asks if she is really shaken. Hyun says no, adding that she lost the bet and has to go along with Hale anyway, otherwise, she would have to give up being a national representative. She then approaches Sunshin, extends her hand, and apologizes for calling him useless earlier, saying she saw his defense magic and it was solid. Sunshin takes her hand and tells her her fire magic was amazing, too.